I did not prepare for that one. I'm sorry. Hello. How's it going? How's it going? Tips chicken. Tips chicken. That is better than just tipping head. How is it going? I hope you're well. Sorry once again late. I definitely need to get a better schedule together, but I am apparently incapable. But never say never. Mm-mm. Getting the things together. And we are back with Sherlock Holmes. Fiction! The only fiction I have in my life right now. Cries in bookworm. Where is what I'm supposed to be looking for? Good day. Is it a good day? I hope so. Or a good even. What am I looking for? Not that. There. No, oh no! It will be better with some Sherlock, I hope then. Low. Shouting out loud. Sorry, no. How are you? How's it going? Good to see you. We hope everyone else has a good day. Well, I hope we can make your day better with some fiction. Cocaine. We'll let the lines fly, I guess, or whatever drug phrases that I don't know. I'm sorry. Well, the first thing, strangely, I was looking up stuff for this, and I googled without looking at this, and it said it was oh, I probably should have looked up how to pronounce this. Reigate. Sounds like reggae. Um, it says the Reigate puzzle, and what I found, it was the Reigate. I feel like it's just gonna sound weird when I say it. Reigate, pronounce. Since apparently that's probably going to figure Reigate, like an agate. Sorry. It's a town in England. Reigate. British. Reigate. The Reigate puzzle. Or should we pronounce it Americanly? Reigate. Oh, no. Yes, cocaine will make the day better. All right, sounds good. For legal reasons, that is a joke. It is a joke, yes. Oh, good Lord. I was going to make a cocaine plus chicken, another word for chicken or rooster, that make a pun with that, but I will not do so because I am a lady. So Reigate, Reigate. Is that what it said? We'll go with Reigate. Because Reigate will put me into the British pronunciation, and then I'll just start speaking in British the entire time, and you won't be able to understand me. That button. Okay. Oh my god, I almost thought that you couldn't hear me. Okay. Alright, sound is good, and book is good. We are good, I think. Yay! In it, mate! Oh, pip pip and cheerio. Put it in the, oh shoot, what is it called? I gotta finish this. The boot of the car. Fill it with petrol. Seeking British. Oi, mate, it's not Tuesday now, innit? So, okay, so there's the received pronunciation, which is the more proper version, I guess. And then there is the Cockney. And the Cockney, if you watch, oh shoot, what is it? The one where My Fair Lady, where they teach her how to speak because she's got that thick Cockney accent, and it's all about, yeah, accents, yeah. Reigate, ma'am. Right, but then I feel like, should I do it Reigate, and I'll just really, really try not to slip into my terrible British accent? The Queen said so herself, she did. Okay, I will. I'll go with Reigate. Reigate. The Reigate puzzle. Oh, but anyway, so I was looking it up, trying to figure things out without looking at this book, this version, and it said the Reigate Squire, and so I put that in, and then I turn on this, and it's the Reigate puzzle. So I don't know, differing versions, sort of thing. So we'll find out, I guess. There's already a puzzle. Also, the pronunciation is a puzzle, so we're full of puzzles this evening. It's going to take a lot of cocaine to get through it. So, all right, we're doing it. The Reigate puzzle. Dun dun. Oops. Dun dun dun. Whoosh. All right. Ugh. It was some time before the health of my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, recovered from the strain caused by his immense exertions in the spring of '87. The whole question of the Netherland Sumatra Company and of the colossal schemes of Baron Maupertuis are too recent in the minds of the public and are too intimately concerned with politics and finance to be fitting subjects for this series of sketches. They led, however, in an indirect fashion to a singular and complex problem which gave my friend an opportunity of demonstrating the value of a fresh weapon among the many with which he waged his lifelong battle against crime. On referring to my notes, I see that it was upon the 14th of April that I received a telegram from Lyons which informed me that Holmes was lying ill in the Hotel Dulong. Within 24 hours, I was in his sick room and was relieved to find that there was nothing formidable in his symptoms. Even his iron constitution, however, had broken down under the strain of an investigation which had extended over 2 months, during which period he had never worked less than 15 hours a day, and had more than once, as he assured me, kept to his task for 5 days at a stretch. Even the triumphant issue of his labors could not save him from reaction after so terrible an exertion, and at a time when Europe was ringing with his name, and when his room was literally ankle-deep with congratulatory telegrams, I found him a prey to the blackest depression. Even the knowledge that he had succeeded where the police of three countries had failed, and that he had outmaneuvered at every point the most accomplished swindler in Europe, was insufficient to rouse him from his nervous prostration. 3 days later, we were back in Baker Street together, but it was evident that my friend would be much the better for a change, and the thought of a week of springtime in the country was full of attractions to me also. My old friend, Colonel Hayter, who had come under my professional care in Afghanistan, had now taken a house near Reigate in Surrey, and had frequently asked me to come down to him upon a visit. On the last occasion, he had remarked that if my friend would only come with me, he would be glad to extend his hospitality to him also. A little diplomacy was needed, but when Holmes understood that the establishment was a bachelor one, and that he would be allowed the fullest freedom, he fell in with my plans, and a week after our return from Lyons, we were under the colonel's roof. Hayter was a fine old soldier who had seen much of the world, and he soon found, as I had expected, that Holmes and he had much in common. On the evening of our arrival, we were sitting in the colonel's gun-room after dinner, Holmes stretched upon the sofa, while Hayter and I looked over his little armory of Eastern weapons. "By the way," said he suddenly, "I think I'll take one of these pistols upstairs with me, in case we have an alarm." "An alarm?" said I. "Yes, we've had a scare in this part lately. Old Acton, who is one of our county magnates... do you say magnates? I think I always said it magnates when I read it, but I feel like... I don't know. Magnates. I'm going to say it magnates in case I'm correct. Old Acton, who is one of our county magnates, had his house broken into last Monday. No great damage done, but the fellows are still at large." "No clue?" asked Holmes, cocking his eye at the colonel. "None as yet, but the affair is a pretty one. One of our little country crimes, which must seem too small for your attention, Mr. Holmes, after this great international affair." Holmes waved away the compliment, though his smile showed that it had pleased him. "Was there any feature of interest?" "I fancy not. The thieves ransacked the library and got very little for their pains. The whole place was turned upside down, drawers burst open, and presses ransacked, with the result that an odd volume of Pope's Homer, 2 plated candlesticks, an ivory letter-weight, a small oak barometer, and a ball of twine are all that have vanished." "What an extraordinary assortment!" I exclaimed. "Oh, well, literally thought I was a flight attendant sound pack going off in the background on your sim. Didn't realize you had my stream up. Well, yes." Is that what flight attendants do nowadays? Read classical literature throughout the flight? I feel like that might be pleasant. Well, I hope it was pleasant. Yeah, you're like, what is going on? That's awesome. Well, hello, how's it going? I hope your flying is going well. We are getting to our Reigate puzzle, so Heidi flight attendant voice pack when? Ooh, do I get to like yell stuff at people? Like, sit down, shut up, here's your drinks. And apparently when it comes to Sherlock, some lines of cocaine. So, yes. Wait, Heidi, Betty sound pack. Ooh. I like the thought. I like the thought. but, Heidi-o, yes. I don't know. We can make it happen. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, the fellows evidently grabbed hold of everything they could get. Holmes grunted from the sofa. "The county police ought to make something of that," said he. "Why, it is surely obvious that—" But I held up a warning finger. "You are here for a rest, my dear fellow. For heaven's sake, don't get started on a new problem when your nerves are all in shreds." Holmes shrugged his shoulders with a glance of comic resignation towards the colonel, and the talk drifted away into less dangerous channels. Missiles locks. Words I can't say because I'm a lady. Yes, that would totally be how it is. That that could be like a VIP thing. Is you get actual instead of those, you get the actual words in the pack. That's the payware. It was destined, however, that all my professional caution should be wasted, for next morning the problem obtruded itself upon us in such a way that it was impossible to ignore it, and our country visit took a turn which neither of us could have anticipated. We were at breakfast when the colonel's butler rushed in with all his propriety shaken out of him. "Have you heard the news, sir?" he gasped. "At the Cunningham, sir." "Burglary!" cried the colonel, with his coffee cup in midair. "Murder! Murder!" The colonel whistled. "By Jove!" said he. "Who was killed, then? The J.P. or his son?" "Neither, sir. It was William, the coachman. Shot through the heart, sir, and never spoke again." "Who shot him, then?" "The burglar, sir. He was off like a shot and got clean away. He just broke in at the pantry window when William came on him and met his end in saving his master's property." "What time?" "It was last night, sir, somewhere about 12. "Ah, then, we'll step over afterwards," said the colonel, coolly settling down to his breakfast again. "It's a baddish business," he added when the butler had gone. "He's our leading man about here, is old Cunningham, and a very decent fellow, too. He'll be cut up over this, for the man has been in his service for years and was a good servant. It's evidently the same villains who broke into Acton's and stole that very singular collection," said Holmes thoughtfully. "Precisely. It may prove the simplest matter in the world, but all the same, at first glance, this is just a little curious, is it not? A gang of burglars acting in the country might be expected to vary the scene of their operations, and not to crack 2 cribs in the same district within a few days. When you spoke last night of taking precautions, I remember that it passed through my mind that this was probably the last parish in England to which the thief or thieves would be likely to turn their attention, which shows that I have still much to learn." "I fancy it's some local practitioner," said the colonel. "In that case, of course, Acton's and Cunningham's are just the places he would go for, since they are far the largest about here." "And richest?" "Well, they ought to be, but they've had a lawsuit for some years, which has sucked the blood out of both of them, I fancy. Old Acton has some claim on half Cunningham's estate, and the lawyers have been at it with both hands." "If it's a local villain, there should not be much difficulty in running him down," said Holmes with a yawn. "All right, Watson, I don't intend to meddle." "Inspector Forrester, sir," said the butler, throwing open the door. The official, a smart, keen-faced young fellow, stepped into the room. "Good morning, Colonel," said he. "I hope I don't intrude, but we hear that Mr. Holmes of Baker Street is here." "Hey there, how's it going? How's it going? I hope you're well. There's been a murder! First burglary and then murder." So now we're trying not to intrude, or Sherlock is, or meddle, but that's apparently not going to happen. Because the official, Inspector Forrester, is looking specifically for Mr. Holmes of Baker Street. The colonel waved his hand towards my friend, and the inspector bowed. "We thought that perhaps you would care to step across, Mr. Holmes." "The fates are against you, Watson," said he, laughing. "We were chatting about the matter when you came in, Inspector. Perhaps you can let us have a few details." As he leaned back in his chair, in the familiar attitude, I knew that the case was hopeless. "There's been a murder, but we're still looking for the cocaine." Yes, I mean, maybe that was what the murderers were looking for. They were looking for the cocaine. And then they got so upset that murder was in order. We had no clue in the Acton affair, but here we have plenty to go on, and there's no doubt it is the same party in each case. The man was seen. "Ah, yes, sir, but he was off like a deer after the shot that killed poor William Kerwin was fired. Mr. Cunningham saw him from the bedroom window, and Mr. Alec Cunningham saw him from the back passage. It was 11:45 when the alarm broke out. Mr. Cunningham had just got into bed, and Mr. Alec was smoking a pipe in his dressing gown. They both heard William the coachman calling for help, and Mr. Alec ran down to see what was the matter. The back door was open, and as he came to the foot of the stairs, he saw two men wrestling together outside. One of them fired a shot, the other dropped, and the murderer rushed across the garden and over the hedge. Mr. Cunningham, looking out of his bedroom, saw the fellow as he gained the road, but lost sight of him at once. Mr. Alec stopped to see if he could help the dying man, and so the villain got clean away. Beyond the fact that he was a middle-sized man and dressed in some dark stuff, we have no personal clue, but we are making energetic inquiries, and if he is a stranger, we shall soon find him out. What type of pipe? I think it is left to the imagination. So... So yes, let the imagination run wild. What was this William doing there? Did he say anything before he died? Not a word. He lives at the lodge with his mother, and as he was a very faithful fellow, we imagine that he walked up to the house with the intention of seeing that all was right there. Of course, this Acton business has put everyone on their guard. The robber must have just burst open the door, the lock has been forced, when William came upon him. Did William say anything to his mother before going out? She is very old and deaf, and we can get no information from her. The shock has made her half-witted, but I understand that she was never very bright. There is one very important circumstance, however. Look at this. He took a small piece of torn paper from a notebook and spread it out upon his knee. This was found between the finger and thumb of the dead man. It appears to be a fragment torn from a larger sheet. You will observe that the hour mentioned upon it is the very time at which the poor fellow met his fate. You see that his murderer might have torn the rest of the sheet from him, or he might have taken this fragment from the murderer. It reads almost as though it were an appointment. Holmes took up the scrap of paper, a facsimile of which is here reproduced. At 11:45, learn what may. Oop, gotta put it down. There. Presuming that it is an appointment, continued the inspector, it is of course a conceivable theory that this William Kerwin, though he had the reputation of being an honest man, may have been in league with the thief. He may have met him there, may even have helped him to break in the door, and then they may have fallen out between themselves. This writing is of extraordinary interest, said Holmes, who had been examining it with intense concentration. These are much deeper waters than I had thought. He sank his head upon his hands, while the inspector smiled at the effect which his case had had upon the famous London specialist. Your last remark, said Holmes presently, as to the possibility of there being an understanding between the burglar and the servant, and this being a note of appointment from one to the other, is an ingenious and not entirely impossible supposition. But this writing opens up... He sank his head into his hands again, and remained for some minutes in the deepest thought. When he raised his face again, I was surprised to see that his cheek... Oops. Gosh darn it, that his cheek was what? That his cheek was tinged with color, and his eyes as bright as before his illness. He sprang to his feet with all his old energy. I'll tell you what, said he. I should like to have a quiet little glance into the details of this case. There is something in it which fascinates me extremely. If you will permit me, Colonel, I will leave my friend Watson and you, and I will step round with the inspector to test the truth of one or two little fancies of mine. I will be with you again in half an hour. An hour and a half. An hour and half. It should be a half. An hour and a half. Unless it's old, or like prior language. An hour and a half had elapsed before the inspector returned alone. Mr. Holmes is walking up and down in the field outside, said he. He wants us all four to go up to the house together. To Mr. Cunningham's. To Mr. Cunningham's. Yes, sir. What for? The inspector shrugged his shoulders. I don't quite know, sir. Between ourselves, I think Mr. Holmes had not quite got over his illness yet. He's been behaving very queerly, and he is very much excited. When you smoke, yes, exactly. I don't think you need alarm yourself, said I. I have usually found that there was method in his madness. Some folks might say there was madness in his method, muttered the inspector. But he's all on fire to start, Colonel, so we had best go out if you are ready. We found Holmes pacing up and down in the field, his chin sunk upon his breast, and his hands thrust into his trousers pockets. The matter grows in interest, said he. Watson, your country trip has been a distinct success. I have had a charming morning. You have been up to the scene of the crime, I understand, said the colonel. Yes, the inspector and I have made quite the little reconnaissance together. Any success? Well, we have seen some very interesting things. I'll tell you what we did as we walk. First of all, we saw the body of this unfortunate man. He certainly died from a revolver wound, as reported. Had you doubted it, then? Oh, it is as well to test everything. Our inspection was not wasted. We then had an interview with Mr. Cunningham and his son, who were able to point out the exact spot where the murderer had broken through the garden hedge in his flight. That was of great interest. Naturally. What if you bubble with yours? I don't know if that's like a specific... Oh, wait. Oh, like, okay. I think I understand now. See, I don't actually understand all of the lingo, so I apologize, but I'm also amused. Then we had a look at this poor fellow's mother. We could get no information from her, however, as she is very old and feeble. And what is the result of your investigations? The conviction that the crime is a very peculiar one. Perhaps our visit now may do something to make it less obscure. I think that we are both agreed, Inspector, that the fragment of paper in the dead man's hand, bearing, as it does, the very hour of his death written upon it, is of extreme importance. It should give a clue, Mr. Holmes. It does give a clue. Whoever wrote that note was the man who brought William Kerwin out of his bed at that hour. But where is the rest of that sheet of paper? I examined the ground carefully in the hope of finding it, said the inspector. It was torn out of the dead man's hand. Why was someone so anxious to get possession of it? Because it incriminated him. And what would he do with it? Thrust it into his pocket, most likely, never noticing that a corner of it had been left in the grip of the corpse. If we could get the rest of that sheet, it is obvious that we should have gone a long way towards solving the mystery. Yes, but how can we get at the criminal's pocket before we catch the criminal? Well, it was worth thinking over. Then there is another obvious point. The note was sent to William. The man who wrote it could not have taken it. Otherwise, of course, he might have delivered his own message by word of mouth. Who brought the note, then? Or did it come through the post? I have made inquiries, said the inspector. William received a letter by the afternoon post yesterday. The envelope was destroyed by him. Excellent, cried Holmes, clapping the inspector on the back. You've seen the postman. It is a pleasure to work with you. Well, here's the lodge, and if you will come up, Colonel, I will show you the scene of the crime. We passed the pretty cottage where the murdered man had lived and walked up an oak-lined avenue to the fine old Queen Anne house, which bears the date of Malplaquet upon the lintel of the door. Holmes and the inspector led us round it until we came to the side gate, which is separated by a stretch of garden from the hedge which lines the road. A constable was standing at the kitchen door. "Throw the door open, officer," said Holmes. Now, it was on those stairs that young Mr. Cunningham stood and saw the two men struggling just where we are. Old Mr. Cunningham was at that window, the second on the left, and he saw the fellow get away just to the left of that bush. So did the son. They are both sure of it on account of the bush. Then Mr. Alec ran out and knelt beside the wounded man. The ground is very hard, you see, and there are no marks to guide us. As he spoke, two men came down the garden path from round the angle of the house. The one was an elderly man, with a strong, deep-lined, heavy-eyed face. The other a dashing young fellow, whose bright, smiling expression and showy dress were in strange contrast with the business which had brought us there. "Still at it, then?" said he to Holmes. "I thought you Londoners were never at fault. You don't seem to be so very quick after all. Ah, you must give us a little time, said Holmes good-humoredly. You'll want it, said young Alec Cunningham. Why, I don't see that we have any clue at all. There's only one, answered the inspector. We thought that if we could only find— Good heavens, Mr. Holmes, what is the matter? My poor friend's face had suddenly assumed the most dreadful expression. His eyes rolled upwards, his features writhed in agony, and with a suppressed groan he dropped on his face upon the ground. Horrified at the suddenness and severity of the attack, we carried him into the kitchen, where he lay back in a large chair and breathed heavily for some minutes. Heavy breathing. Finally, with a shamefaced apology for his weakness, he rose once more. Watson would tell you that I have only just recovered from a severe illness, he explained. I am liable to these sudden nervous attacks. Shall I send you home in my trap? Asked old Cunningham. Well, since I am here, there is one point on which I would like to feel sure. We can very easily verify it. What was it? Well, it seems to me that it is just possible that the arrival of this poor fellow William was not— Hang on. Poor fellow William was not before, but after. Hang on. Okay. Well, it seems to me that it is just possible that the arrival of this poor fellow William was not before, but after the entrance of the burglary into the house. You appear to take it for granted that, although the door was forced, the robber never got in. I fancy that is quite obvious, said Mr. Cunningham gravely. Why, my son Alec had not yet gone to bed, and he would certainly have heard anyone moving about. Where was he sitting? I was smoking in my dressing room. Which window is that? The last on the left, next my father's. Both of your lamps were lit, of course. Undoubtedly. There are some very singular points here, said Holmes, smiling. Is it not extraordinary that a burglary, and a burglar who had had some previous experience, should deliberately break into a house at a time when he could see from the lights that two of the family were still afoot? He must have been a cool hand. Well, of course, if the case were not an odd one, we should not have been driven to ask you for an explanation, said young Mr. Alec. But as to your ideas that the man had robbed the house before William tackled him, I think it a most absurd notion. Wouldn't we have found the place disarranged and missed the things which he had taken? It depends on what the things were, said Holmes. You must remember that we are dealing with a burglar who is a very peculiar fellow and who appears to work on lines of his own. Look, for example, at the queer lot of things which he took from Acton's. What was it? A ball of string, a letter weight, and I don't know what other odds and ends. Well, we are quite in your hands, Mr. Holmes, said old Cunningham. Anything which you or the inspector may suggest will most certainly be done. In the first place, said Holmes, I should like you to offer a reward, coming from yourself, for the officials may take a little time before they would agree upon the sum, and these things cannot be done too promptly. I have jotted down the form here, if you would not mind signing it. £50 was quite enough, I thought. I would willingly give 500, said the J.P., taking the slip of paper and the pencil which Holmes handed to him. This is not quite correct, however, he added, glancing over the document. I wrote it rather hurriedly. You see, you begin, whereas at about 1:45 on Tuesday morning an attempt was made, and so on. It was at 11:45, as a matter of fact. I was pained at the mistake, for I knew how keenly Holmes would feel any slip of the kind. It was his specialty to be accurate as to fact, but his recent illness had shaken him, and this one little incident was enough to show me that he was still far from being himself. He was obviously embarrassed for an instant, while the inspector raised his eyebrows, and Alec Cunningham burst into a laugh. The old gentleman corrected the mistake, however, and handed the paper back to Holmes. Get it printed as soon as possible, he said. I think your idea is an excellent one. Holmes put the slip of paper carefully away into his pocketbook. And now, said he, it really would be a good thing that we should all go over the house together and make certain that this rather erratic burglar did not, after all, carry anything away with him. Before entering, Holmes made an examination of the door, which had been forced. It was evident that a chisel or strong knife had been thrust in, and the lock forced back with it. We could see the marks in the wood where it had been pushed in. "You don't use bars, then?" he asked. "We have never found it necessary." "You don't keep a dog?" "Yes, but he is chained on the other side of the house." "When do the servants go to bed?" "About 10. I understand that William was usually in bed also at that hour." "Yes." "It is singular that on this particular night he should have been up. Now, I should be very glad if you would have the kindness to show us over the house, Mr. Cunningham." A stone-flagged passage, with the kitchens branching away from it, led by a wooden staircase directly to the first floor of the house. It came out upon the landing opposite to a second, more ornamental stair, which came up from the front hall. Out of this landing opened the drawing room and several bedrooms, including those of Mr. Cunningham and his son. Holmes walked slowly, taking keen note of the architecture of the house. I could tell from his expression that he was on a hot scent, and yet I could not in the least imagine in what direction his inferences were leading him. "My good sir," said Mr. Cunningham with some impatience, "this is surely very unnecessary. That is my room at the end of the stairs, and my son's is the one beyond it. I leave it to your judgment whether it was possible for the thief to have come up here without disturbing us." "You must try round and get on a fresh scent, I fancy," said the son, with a rather malicious smile. "Still, I must ask you to humor me a little further. I should like, for example, to see how far the windows of the bedrooms command the front. This, I understand, is your son's room." He pushed open the door. "And that, I presume, is the dressing room in which he sat smoking when the alarm was given. Where does the window of that look out to?" He stepped across the bedroom, pushed open the door, and glanced round the other chamber. "I hope that you are satisfied now," said Mr. Cunningham tartly. "Thank you. I think I have seen all that I wished. Then, if it is really necessary, we can go into my room, if it is not too much trouble." The J.P. shrugged his shoulders and led the way into his own chamber, which was a plainly furnished and commonplace room. As we moved across it in the direction of the window, Holmes fell back until he and I were the last of the group. Near the foot of the bed stood a dish of oranges and a carafe of water. As we passed it, Holmes, to my unutterable astonishment, leaned over in front of me and deliberately knocked the whole thing over. The glass smashed into 1,000 pieces, and the fruit rolled about into every corner of the room. "You've done it now, Watson," said he coolly. "A pretty mess you've made of the carpet." I stooped in some confusion and began to pick up the fruit, understanding for some reason my companion desired me to take the blame upon myself. The others did the same and set the table on its legs again. "Hello!" cried the inspector. "Where's he got to?" Holmes had disappeared. "Wait here an instant," said young Alec Cunningham. "The fellow is off his head, in my opinion. Come with me, father, and see where he has got to." They rushed out of the room, leaving the inspector, the colonel, and me staring at each other. "'Pon my word, I am inclined to agree with Master Alec," said the official. "It may be the effect of this illness, but it seems to me that—" His words were cut short by a sudden scream of "Help! Help! Murder!" With a thrill, I recognized the voice of that of my friend. I rushed madly from the room onto the landing. The cries, which had sunk down into a hoarse, inarticulate shouting, came from the room which we had first visited. I dashed in and on into the dressing room beyond. The two Cunninghams were bending over the prostrate figure of Sherlock Holmes, the younger clutching his throat with both hands, while the elder seemed to be twisting one of his wrists. In an instant, the three of us had torn them away from him, and Holmes staggered to his feet, very pale and evidently greatly exhausted. "Arrest these men, Inspector," he gasped. "On what charge?" "That of murdering their coachman, William Kerwin." Dun, dun, dun! The inspector stared about him in bewilderment. "Oh, come now, Mr. Holmes," said he at last. "I'm sure you don't really mean to—" "Tut, man, look at their faces," cried Holmes curtly. Never, certainly, have I seen a plainer confession of guilt upon human countenances. The older man seemed numbed and dazed with a heavy, sullen expression upon his strongly marked face. The son, on the other hand, had dropped all that jaunty, dashing style which had characterized him, and the ferocity of a dangerous wild beast gleamed in his dark eyes and distorted his handsome features. The inspector said nothing, but, stepping to the door, he blew his whistle. 2 of his constables came at the call. "Let's see if you can sneak in on Pepper tonight." "Okay, sounds good. Let us see, let us know how it goes." "Be very, very quiet." "I have no alternative, Mr. Cunningham," said he. "I trust that this may all prove to be an absurd mistake, but you can see that— would you? Drop it!" He struck out with his hand, and a revolver which the younger man was in the act of cocking clattered down upon the floor. "Keep that," said Holmes, quietly putting his foot upon it. "You will find it useful at the trial. But this is what we really wanted." He held up a little crumpled piece of paper. "The remainder of the sheet," cried the inspector. "Precisely." "And where was it?" "Where I was sure it must be. I'll make the whole matter clear to you presently. I think, Colonel, that you and Watson might return now, and I will be with you again in an hour at the furthest. The inspector and I must have a word with the prisoners, but you will certainly see me back at luncheon time." Sherlock Holmes was as good as his word. For about 1 o'clock, he rejoined us in the Colonel's smoking room. There's a lot of smoking happening in here. He was accompanied by a little elderly gentleman, who was introduced to me as the Mr. Acton whose house had been the scene of the original burglary. "I wished Mr. Acton to be present while I demonstrated this small matter to you," said Holmes, "for it is natural that he should take a keen interest in the details. I'm afraid, my dear Colonel, that you must regret the hour that you took in such a stormy petrel as I am." "On the contrary," answered the Colonel warmly, "I consider it the greatest privilege to have been permitted to study your methods of working. I confess that they quite surpass my expectations, and that I am utterly unable to account for your result. I have not yet seen the vestige of a clue." A lot of smoking, not enough cocaine, though. Again, imaginations run wild. Just let them. "I trust that you had no more— wait, hang on. Sorry. Not seen the vestige of a clue. I am afraid that my explanation may disillusion you, but it has always been my habit to hide none of my methods, either from my friend Watson or from anyone who might take an intelligent interest in them. But first, as I am rather shaken by the knocking about which I had in the dressing room, I think that I shall help myself to a dash of your brandy, Colonel. My strength had been rather tried of late." "I trust that you had no more of those nervous attacks?" Sherlock Holmes laughed heartily. "We will come to that in its turn," said he. "I will lay an account of the case before you in its due order, showing you the various points which guided me in my decision. Pray interrupt me if there is any inference which is not perfectly clear to you. It is of the highest importance in the art of detection to be able to recognize, out of a number of facts, which are incidental and which vital. Otherwise your energy and attention must be dissipated, instead of being concentrated. Now, in this case, there was not the slightest doubt in my mind, from the first, that the key of the whole matter must be looked for in the scrap of paper in the dead man's hand. Before going into this, I would draw your attention to the fact that, if Alec Cunningham's narrative was correct, and if the assailant, after shooting William Kerwin, had instantly fled, then it obviously could not be he who tore the paper from the dead man's hand. But if it was not he, it must have been Alec Cunningham himself, for by the time that the old man had descended, several servants were upon the scene. The point is a simple one, but the inspector had overlooked it because he had started with the supposition that these county magnates had had nothing to do with the matter. Now I make a point of never having any prejudices, and of following docilely wherever fact may lead me, and so, in the very first stage of the investigation, I found myself looking a little askance at the part which had been played by Mr. Alec Cunningham. He caught you? Oh no, but I mean it is to be expected. He is the Sherlock of puppers. Catching it. Yeah, okay, sorry. And now I made a very careful examination of the corner of paper which the inspector had submitted to us. It was at once clear to me that it formed part of a very remarkable document. Here it is. Do you not now observe? Do you not now observe? Just observe. Do you not now observe something very suggestive about it? It has a very irregular look, said the colonel. My dear sir, cried Holmes, there cannot be the least doubt in the world that it has been written by two persons doing alternate words. When I draw your attention to the strong T's of at and to, and ask you to compare them with the weak ones of quarter and 12, you will instantly recognize the fact. A very brief analysis of these 4 words would enable you to say with the utmost confidence that the learn and the maybe are written in the stronger hand and the what in the weaker. By Jove, it's as clear as day, cried the colonel. Why on earth should 2 men write a letter in such a fashion? Obviously, the business was a bad one, and one of the men who distrusted the other was determined that, whatever was done, each should have an equal hand in it. Now, of the 2 men, it is clear that the one who wrote the at and to was the ringleader. How do you get at that? We might deduce it from the mere character of the one hand, as compared with the other. But we have more assured reasons than that for supposing it. If you examine this scrap with attention, you will come to the conclusion that the man with the stronger hand wrote all his words first, leaving blanks for the other to fill up. These blanks were not always sufficient, and you can see that the second man had a squeeze to fit his quarter in between the at and the to, showing that the latter were already written. The man who wrote all his words first in, undoubtedly the man who wrote all his words first is undoubtedly the man who planned the affair. Excellent, cried Mr. Acton. You got 2 steps up and he's like, excuse me, where do you think you're going? And then he attacked, I assume. Very alert, very perceptive, very perceptive. I try. But very superficial, said Holmes. We come now, however, to a point which is of importance. You may not be aware that the deduction of a man's age from his writing is one which has brought to considerable accuracy by experts. In normal cases, one can place a man in his true decade with tolerable confidence. I say normal cases because ill health and physical weakness reproduce the signs of old age, even when the invalid is a youth. In this case, looking at the bold, strong hand of the one and the rather broken-backed appearance of the other, which still retains its legibility, although the T's have begun to lose their crossing, we can say that the one was a young man and the other was advanced in years without being positively decrepit. Excellent, cried Mr. Acton again. I just want to point out my writing is that of a 3rd grader's, so does that mean that I could commit whatever crime I wanted with, like, handwriting proof, and they would just assume a 3rd grader did it? Dun, 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 dun. Maybe. There is a further point, however, which is subtler and of greater interest. There is something in common between these hands. They belong to men who are blood relatives. It may be most obvious to you in the Greek ease, but to me there are many small points which indicate the same thing. I have no doubt at all that a family mannerism can be traced in these 2 specimens of writing. I am only, of course, giving you the leading results now of my examination of the paper. There were 23 other deductions, which would be of more interest to experts than to you. They all tend to deepen the impression upon my mind that the Cunninghams, father and son, had written this letter. Sir, you're letting you start over? That's what VODs are for. I mean, we're almost done with this story, but there's another one coming up, so you're not completely late. So it's all good. How's it going? I hope you're well. Having got so far, well, I guess I can I won't reiterate in case you want to watch the VOD, and or read the story yourself. So I will try not to spoil while, try not to spoil while reading the ending of the story. Okay, you'll watch Owl Kitty? Oh, it's so good. It made me want to try it with my cat. I don't think she would be as uh cooperative though, but they're so cute. Having got so far, my next step was, of course, to examine into the details of the crime and to see how far they would help us. I went up to the house with the inspector and saw all that was to be seen. The wound upon the dead man was, as I was able to determine with absolute confidence, fired from a revolver at the distance of something over 4 yards. There was no powder blackening on the clothes. Evidently, therefore, Alec Cunningham had lied when he said that the two men were struggling when the shot was fired. Again, both father and son agreed as to the place where the man escaped into the road. At that point, however, as it happens, there is a broadish ditch, moist at the bottom. As there were no indications of boot marks about this ditch, I was absolutely sure not only that the Cunninghams had again lied, but that there had never been any unknown man upon the scene at all. And now I have to consider the motive of this singular crime. To get at this, I endeavored first of all to solve the reason of the original burglary at Mr. Acton's. I understood, from something which the Colonel told us, that a lawsuit had been going on between you, Mr. Acton, and the Cunninghams. Of course, it instantly occurred to me that they had broken into your library with the intention of getting at some document which might be of importance in the case. Precisely so, said Mr. Acton. There can be no possible doubt as to their intentions. I have the clearest claim upon half of their present estate, and if they could have found a single paper, which, fortunately, was in the strong box of my solicitors, they would undoubtedly have crippled our case. There you are, said Holmes, smiling. It was a dangerous, reckless attempt, in which I seemed to trace the influence of young Alec. Having found nothing, they tried to divert suspicion by making it appear to be an ordinary burglary, to which end they carried off whatever they could lay their hands upon. That is all clear enough, but there was much that was still obscure. What I wanted above all was to get the missing part of that note. I was certain that Alec had torn it out of the dead man's hand, and almost certain that he must have thrust it into the pocket of his dressing gown. Where else could he have put it? The only question was whether it was still there. It was worth an effort to find out, and for that object we all went up to the house. I'm just imagining this Alec Cunningham, rich guy, and he's like, all right, now I gotta burgle some stuff. What would poor people burgle? Just grabs random anything. I don't know why it's amusing, but it is. The Cunninghams joined us, as you doubtless remember, outside the kitchen door. It was, of course, of the very first importance that they should not be reminded of the existence of this paper, otherwise they would naturally destroy it without delay. The inspector was about to tell them the importance which we attached to it when, by the luckiest chance in the world, I tumbled down in a sort of fit and so changed the conversation. Good heavens, cried the colonel, laughing. Do you mean to say all our sympathy was wasted and your fit an imposture? Speaking professionally, it was admirably done, cried I, looking in amazement at this man who was forever confounding me with some new phase of his astuteness. What would poor people burgle? Probably bleach. If that's a specific reference that I don't understand, I'm sorry. But I still appreciate it nonetheless. But I don't know. I don't know why. Just imagining that it tickles me for some reason. It is an art which is often useful, said he. When I recovered, I managed, by a device which had perhaps some little merit of ingenuity, to get old Cunningham to write the word 12. Ah, there it was, so that I might compare it with the 12 upon the paper. Oh, what an ass I have been, I exclaimed. I'm allowed to say it because it's in the story. Oh, and then I can go down a little bit. Just some dark internet humor. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, I thought it might have gone in that direction, but I mean, we're reading Sherlock Holmes. That's dark, so we can have some dark humor in there as well. I could see... Sorry, I heard a strange noise. I could see that you were commiserating me over my weakness, said Holmes, laughing. I was sorry to cause you the sympathetic pain which I know that you felt. We then went upstairs together, and having entered the room and seen the dressing gown hanging up behind the door, I contrived, by upsetting a table, to engage their attention for the moment, and slipped back to examine the pockets. I had hardly got the paper, however, which was, as I had expected, in one of them, when the two Cunninghams were on me, and would, I verily believe, have murdered me then and there, but for your prompt and friendly aid. As it is, I feel that young man's grip on my throat now, and the father has twisted my wrist round in the effort to get the paper out of my hand. They saw that I must know all about it, you see, and the sudden change from absolute security to complete despair made them perfectly desperate. I had a little talk with old Cunningham afterwards as to the motive of the crime. He was tractable enough, though his son was a perfect demon, ready to blow out his own or anybody else's brains if he could have got to his revolver. When Cunningham saw that the case against him was so strong, he lost all heart and made a clean breast of everything. It seems that William had secretly followed his two masters on the night when they made their raid upon Mr. Acton's, and having thus got them into his power, proceeded, under threats of exposure, to levy blackmail upon them. Mr. Alec, however, was a dangerous man to play games of that sort with. It was a stroke of positive genius on his part to see in the burglary scare, which was convulsing the countryside, an opportunity of plausibly getting rid of the man whom he feared. William was decoyed up and shot, and had they only got the whole of the note and paid a little more attention to detail in the accessories, it is very possible that suspicion might never have been aroused. And the note? I asked. Sherlock Holmes placed the subjoined paper before us. If you will only come around at 11:45 to the East Gate, you will learn what will very much surprise you and may be of the greatest service to you and also to Annie Morrison, but say nothing to anyone upon the matter. It is very much the sort of thing that I expected, said he. Of course, we do not yet know what the relations may have been between Alec Cunningham, William Kerwin, and Annie Morrison. The results show that the trap was skillfully baited. I am sure that you cannot fail to be delighted with the traces of heredity shown in the P's and in the tails of the G's. The absence of the eye dots in the old man's writing is also most characteristic. Watson, I think our quiet rest in the country has been a distinct success, and I shall certainly return much invigorated to Baker Street tomorrow. Excellent. It was funny because when it ended, when it's like, oh, we're arresting the murderers because they're murdering him right in the middle of the story, and then there's still quite a bit of story left to go. Again, I never know how it's going to happen. And I also appreciate the personality that comes through with Sherlock, where over here when he's talking about the handwriting. Oh, where is it? Is it this one? Something about there being the one line where there's 23 other ways of pointing this out. There's 23 other... Gosh, where is it? Gosh darn it. Is it just over here? I think it's... Oh, here it is. There were 23 other deductions which would be of more interest to experts than to you. So, like, he puts that in there. He knows that they probably don't care about the tediousness of the things. But then he goes back anyway, and he's like, I'm sure that you cannot fail to be delighted with the traces of heredity shown in the P's and in the tails of the G's. The absence of the eye dots in the old man's writing is also most characteristic. Like, getting that in there where it's like, he's excited about this stuff. He's able to see that other people don't really care. But then when he really gets excited about it, he's going to bring it out again. And then the final line right after that. I think our quiet rest in the country has been very much a success. I'm going to be invigorated tomorrow because he had this fun stuff that he really enjoys. So, yeah. And it was fun because it started out with, oh, it's just, there was a big international scandal and now he's sick. Oh no, so sad. Then they go to a quiet country and it's all good. And then, oh, a burglary. Puzzle, puzzle. And then murder. And it just kind of throws everything. So yeah, just like the different twists and turns in such a short period of time were very good as well. Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that one. So that was the Reigate puzzle or the Reigate Squire, which I assume, if it's the Reigate Squire, I assume that would be William being the Squire, unless I'm thinking of Squire incorrectly. But yeah, there's that. And now we're on to our second one of the even, second and final. Make sure things are happening the way they're supposed to still. It's funny because I get the most paranoid when I don't need to, and then I just when I should be paranoid and when things are actually going wrong, I just completely oblivious. All right. Music? Oh, shoot. Yes, okay. Onward! The Crooked Man. Not to be, what's the word? Confused with the other Crooked Man. Or maybe not. I don't know. We shall see. Sorry, the mic's being strange. There, okay. The Crooked Man. One summer night, a few months after my marriage, I was seated by my own hearth, smoking a last pipe and nodding over a novel, for my day's work had been an exhausting one. My wife had already gone upstairs, and the sound of the locking of the hall door some time before told me that the servants had also retired. I had risen from my seat and was knocking out the ashes of my pipe when I suddenly heard the clang of the bell. I looked at the clock. It was 11:45. This could not be a visitor at so late an hour. A patient, evidently, and possibly an all-night sitting. With a wry face, I went out into the hall and opened the door. To my astonishment, it was Sherlock Holmes who stood upon my step. "Ah, Watson," said he, "I hoped that I might not be too late to catch you. My dear fellow, pray come in. You look surprised, and no wonder. Relieved, too, I fancy. You still smoke the Arcadia mixture of your bachelor days, then. There's no mistaking that fluffy ash upon your coat. It's easy to tell that you have been accustomed to wear a uniform, Watson. You'll never pass as a purebred civilian. As long as you keep that habit of carrying your handkerchief in your sleeve. Could you put me up tonight?" "With pleasure." "You told me that you had a bachelor quarters, for one, and I see that you have no gentleman visitor at present. Your hat stand proclaims as much." "I shall be delighted if you will stay." "Thank you. I'll fill the vacant peg, then. Sorry to see that you've had the British workman in the house. He's a token of evil. Not the drains, I hope." "No, the gas." "Ah, he has left 2 nail marks from his boot upon your linoleum, just where the light strikes it. No, thank you. I had some supper at Waterloo, but I'll smoke a pipe with you with pleasure. With you with pleasure." Sorry, this is bothering me. There, stay, please. This is what happens when you're cheap. Cheap. I handed him my pouch, and he seated himself opposite to me and smoked for some time in silence. I was well aware that nothing but business of importance would have brought him to me at such an hour, so I waited patiently until he should come round to it. "I see that you are professionally rather busy just now," said he, glancing very keenly across at me. "Yes, I've had a busy day," I answered. "It may seem very foolish in your eyes," I added, "but really I don't know how you deduced it." Holmes chuckled to himself. "I have the advantage of knowing your habits, my dear Watson," said he. "When your round is a short one, you walk, and when it is a long one, you use a hansom. As I perceive that your boots, although used, are by no means dirty, I cannot doubt that you are at present busy enough to justify the hansom. Excellent, I cried. Elementary, said he. Ah, there it is. It is one of those instances where the reasoner can produce an effect which seems remarkable to his neighbor, because the latter has missed the one little point which is the basis of the deduction. The same may be said, my dear fellow, for the effect of some of these little sketches of yours, which is entirely meretricious, depending as it does upon your retaining in your own hands some factors in the problem which are never imparted to the reader. Now at present, I am in the position of these same readers, for I hold in this hand several threads of one of the strangest cases which ever perplexed a man's brain, and yet I lack the one or two which are needful to complete my theory. But I'll have them, Watson. I'll have them. His eyes kindled, and a slight flush sprang into his thin cheeks. For an instant the veil had lifted upon his keen, intense nature, but for an instant only. When I glanced again, his face had resumed that Red Indian composure which had made so many regard him as a machine rather than a man. The problem presents features of interest, said he. I may even say exceptional features of interest. I have already looked into the matter and have come, as I think, within sight of my solution. If you could accompany me in that last step, you might be of considerable service to me. I should be delighted. Could you go as far as Aldershot tomorrow? I have no doubt Jackson would take my practice. Very good. I want to start by the 11:10 from Waterloo. That would give me time. Then, if you are not too sleepy, I will give you a sketch of what has happened, and of what remains to be done. I was sleepy before you came. I am quite wakeful now. I will compress the story as far as may be done, without omitting anything vital to the case. It is conceivable that you may even have read some account of the matter. It is the supposed murder of Colonel Barclay of the Royal Munsters at Aldershot which I am investigating. I have heard nothing of it. It has not excited much attention yet, except locally. The facts are only 2 days old. Briefly, they are these. The Royal Munsters is, as you know, one of the most famous Irish regiments in the British Army. It did wonders both in the Crimea and the Mutiny, and has since that time distinguished itself upon every possible occasion. It was commanded up to Monday night by James Barclay, a gallant veteran who started as a full private, was raised to commissioned rank for his bravery at the time of the Mutiny, and so lived to command the regiment in which he had once carried a musket. Colonel Barclay had married at the time when he was a sergeant, and his wife, whose maiden name was Miss Nancy Devoy, was the daughter of a former color sergeant in the same corps. There was, therefore, as can be imagined, some little social friction when the young couple, for they were still young, found themselves in their new surroundings. They appear, however, to have quickly adapted themselves, and Mrs. Barclay has always, I understand, been as popular with the ladies of the regiment as her husband was with his brother officers. I may add that she was a woman of great beauty, and that even now, when she has been married for upwards of 30 years, she is still of a striking and queenly appearance. Working on your inverted flying? I hope you are. I hope you've been getting some sim time in. And foreign communications. Yes. Colonel Barclay's family life appears to have been a uniformly happy one. Major Murphy, to whom I owe most of my facts, assures me that he has never heard of any misunderstanding between the pair. On the whole, he thinks that Barclay's devotion to his wife was greater than his wife's to Barclay. He was acutely uneasy if he were absent from her for a day. She, on the other hand, though devoted and faithful, was less obtrusively affectionate. But they were regarded in the regiment as the very model of a middle-aged couple. There was absolutely nothing in their mutual relations to prepare people for the tragedy which was to follow. Colonel Barclay himself seems to have had some singular traits in his character. He was a dashing, jovial old soldier. Can you hang on? Because I swear they had this. They put soldier, I swear, in another one. So I'm just gonna make sure whether I'm just not. Sorry, this is bothering me, so I need to know. Oh. Um, but yeah. No, no, no. It's just a mistype. Sorry. I'm sorry. These are the things that, yes. Anyway, sorry. Colonel Barclay himself seems to have had some singular traits in his character. He was a dashing, jovial old soldier in his usual mood, but there were occasions on which he seemed to show himself capable of considerable violence and vindictiveness. This side of his nature, however, appears never to have been turned towards his wife. Another fact which had struck Major Murphy and 3 out of 5 of the other officers with whom I conversed was the singular sort of depression which came upon him at times. As the Major expressed it, the smile had often been struck from his mouth, as if by some invisible hand, when he has been joining the gaieties and chaff of the mess table. For days on end, when the mood was on him, he has been sunk in the deepest gloom. This and a certain tinge of superstition were the only unusual traits in his character which his brother officers had observed. The latter peculiarity took the form of a dislike to being left alone, especially after dark. This puerile feature in a nature which was conspicuously manly had often given rise to comment and conjecture. The 1st Battalion of the Royal Munsters, which is the old 117th, has been stationed at Aldershot for some years. The married officers live out of barracks, and the colonel has, during all this time, occupied a villa called La Quine, about half a mile from the North Camp. The house stands in its own grounds, but the west side of it is not more than 30 yards from the high road. A coachman and 2 maids form the staff of servants. These, with their master and mistress, were the sole occupants of La Quine, for the Barclays had no children, nor was it usual for them to have resident visitors. Now for the events at La Quine between 9 and 10 on the evening of last Monday. Mrs. Barclay was, it appears, a member of the Roman Catholic Church, and had interested herself very much in the establishment of the Guild of St. George, which was formed in connection with the Watt Street Chapel for the purpose of supplying the poor with cast-off clothing. A meeting of the Guild had been held that evening at 8, and Mrs. Barclay had hurried over for dinner in order to be present at it. When leaving the house, she was heard by the coachman to make some commonplace remark to her husband, and to assure him that she would be back before very long. She then called for Miss Morrison, a young lady who lives in the next villa, and the two went off together to their meeting. It lasted 40 minutes, and at 9:15, Mrs. Barclay returned home, having left Miss Morrison at her door as she passed. There is a room which is used as a morning room at La Quine. This faces the road and opens by a large glass folding door onto the lawn. The lawn is 30 yards across and is only divided from the highway by a low wall with an iron rail above it. It was into this room that Mrs. Barclay went upon her return. The blinds were not down, for the room was seldom used in the evening, but Mrs. Barclay herself lit the lamp and then rang the bell, asking Jane Stewart, the housemaid, to bring her a cup of tea, which was quite contrary to her usual habits. The colonel had been sitting in the dining room, but hearing that his wife had returned, he joined her in the morning room. The coachman saw him cross the hall and enter it. He was never seen again alive. The tea which had been ordered was brought up at the end of 10 minutes, but the maid, as she approached the door, was surprised to hear the voices of her master and mistress in furious altercation. She knocked without receiving any answer, and even turned the handle, but only to find that the door was locked upon the inside. Naturally enough, she ran down to tell the cook, and the 2 women with the coachman came up into the hall and listened to the dispute which was still raging. They all agreed that only 2 voices were to be heard, those of Barclay and of his wife. Barclay's remarks were subdued and abrupt, so that none of them were audible to the listeners. The lady's, on the other hand, were most bitter, and when she raised her voice could be plainly heard. "You coward!" she repeated over and over again. "What can be done now? What can be done now? Give me back my life. I will never again so much as breathe the same air with you again. You coward! You coward!" Those were scraps of her conversation, ending in a sudden, dreadful cry in the man's voice, with a crash and a piercing scream from the woman. Convinced that some tragedy had occurred, the coachman rushed to the door and strove to force it, while scream after scream issued from within. He was unable, however, to make his way in, and the maids were too distracted with fear to be of any assistance to him. A sudden thought struck him, however, and he ran through the hall door and round to the lawn, upon which the long French windows open. One side of the window was open, which I understand was quite usual in the summertime, and he passed without difficulty into the room. His mistress had ceased to scream, and was stretched insensible upon a couch, while with his feet tilted over the side of an armchair, and his head upon the ground near the corner of the fender, was lying the unfortunate soldier, stone dead, in a pool of his own blood. Naturally, the coachman's first thought, on finding that he could do nothing for his master, was to open the door. But here an unexpected and singular difficulty presented itself. The key was not in the inner side of the door, nor could he find it anywhere in the room. He went out again, therefore, through the window, and having obtained the help of a policeman and of a medical man, he returned. The lady, against whom naturally the strongest suspicion rested, was removed to her room, still in a state of insensibility. The colonel's body was then placed upon the sofa, and a careful examination made of the scene of the tragedy. The injury from which the unfortunate veteran was suffering was found to be a jagged cut some 2 inches long at the back part of his head, which had evidently been caused by a violent blow from a blunt weapon. Nor was it difficult to guess what that weapon may have been. Upon the floor, close to the body, was lying a singular club of hard carved wood with a bone handle. The colonel possessed a varied collection of weapons brought from the different countries in which he had fought, and it is conjectured by the police that his club was among his trophies, and it is conjectured by the police that this club was among his trophies. The servants deny having seen it before, but among the numerous curiosities in the house, it is possible that it may have been overlooked. Nothing else of importance was discovered in the room by the police, save the inexplicable fact that neither upon Mrs. Barclay's person, nor upon that of the victim, nor in any part of the room, was the missing key to be found. The door had eventually to be opened by a locksmith from Aldershot. That was the state of things, Watson, when upon the Tuesday morning I, at the request of Major Murphy, went down to Aldershot to supplement the efforts of the police. I think that you will acknowledge that the problem was already one of interest, but my observations soon made me realize that it was in truth much more extraordinary than would at first sight appear. Before examining the room, I cross-questioned the servants, but only succeeded in eliciting the facts which I have already stated. One other detail of interest was remembered by Jane Stewart, the housemaid. You will remember that on hearing the sound of the quarrel, she descended and returned with the other servants. On that first occasion, when she was alone, she says that the voices of her master and mistress were sunk so low that she could hear hardly anything, and judged by their tones rather than their words that they had fallen out. On my pressing her, however, she remembered that she heard the word David uttered twice by the lady. The point is of the utmost importance, as guiding us towards the reason of the sudden quarrel. The colonel's name, you remember, was James. There was one thing in the case which had made the deepest impression both upon the servants and the police. This was the contortion of the colonel's face. It had set, according to their account, into the most dreadful expression of fear and horror which a human countenance is capable of assuming. More than one person fainted at the mere sight of it. More than one person fainted at the mere sight of him. So terrible was the effect. It was quite certain that he had foreseen his fate, and that it had caused him the utmost horror. Wasn't the cut on the back of his head, though? This, of course, fitted in well enough with the police theory, if the colonel could have seen his wife making a murderous attack upon him. Okay, nor was the fact of the wound being on the back of his head a fatal objection to this, as he might have turned to avoid the blow. All right, okay. No information could be got from the lady herself, who was temporarily insane from an acute attack of brain fever. From the police, I learned that Miss Morrison, who you remember went out that evening with Mrs. Barclay, denied having any knowledge of what it was which had caused the ill humor in which her companion had returned. Having gathered these facts, Watson, I smoked several pipes over them, trying to separate those which were crucial from others which were merely incidental. There could be no question that the most distinctive and suggestive point in the case was the singular disappearance of the door key. A most careful search had failed to discover it in the room. Therefore, it must have been taken from it. But neither the colonel nor the colonel's wife could have taken it. That was perfectly clear. Therefore, a third person must have entered the room. And that third person could only have come in through the window. It seemed to me that a careful examination of the room and the lawn might possibly reveal some traces of this mysterious individual. You know my methods, Watson. There was not one of them which I did not apply to the inquiry, and it ended by my discovering traces, but very different ones from those which I had expected. There had been a man in the room, and he had crossed the lawn coming from the road. I was able to obtain 5 very clear impressions of his footmarks. One in the roadway itself, at the point where he had climbed the low wall, 2 on the lawn, and 2 very faint ones upon the stained boards near the window where he had entered. He had apparently rushed across the lawn, for his toe marks were much deeper than his heels. But it was not the man who surprised me. It was his companion. His companion? Holmes pulled a large sheet of tissue paper out of his pocket and carefully unfolded it upon his knee. "What do you make of that?" he asked. The paper was covered with the tracings. The paper was covered with the tracings of the footmarks of some small animal. It had 5 well-marked footpads, an indication of long nails, and the whole print might be nearly as large as a dessert spoon. "It's a dog," said I. "Did you ever hear of a dog running up a curtain? I found distinct traces that this creature had done so. A monkey, then. But it is not the print of a monkey. What can it be, then?" "Neither dog, nor cat, nor monkey, nor any creature that we are familiar with. I have tried to reconstruct it from the measurements. Here are 4 prints where the beast has been standing motionless. You see that it is no less than 15 inches from forefoot to hind. Add to that the length of neck and head, and you get a creature not much less than 2 feet long, probably more if there is any tail. But now observe this other measurement. The animal has been moving, and we have the length of its stride. In each case, it is only about 3 inches. You have an indication, you see, of a long body with very short legs attached to it. It has not been considerate enough to leave any of its hair behind, but its general shape must be what I have indicated, and it can run up a curtain, and it is carnivorous." "How do you deduce that?" "Because it ran up the curtain." "A canary's cage was hanging in the window, and its aim seems to have been to get at the bird." "Then what was the beast?" "Ah, if I could give it a name, it might go a long way towards solving the case. On the whole, it was probably some creature of the weasel and stoat tribe, and yet it is larger than any of these that I have seen." "But what had it to do with the crime?" "That also is still obscure. But we have learned a good deal, you perceive. We know that a man stood in the road looking at the quarrel between the Barclays. The blinds were up and the room lighted. We know also that he ran across the lawn, entered the room, accompanied by a strange animal, and that he either struck the colonel or, as is equally possible, that the colonel fell down from sheer fright at the sight of him and cut his head on the corner of the fender. Finally, we have the curious fact that the intruder carried away the key with him when he left. Okay. Your discoveries seem to have left the business more obscure than it was before, said I. Than it was before, said I. Quite so. They undoubtedly showed that the affair was much deeper than was at first conjectured. I thought the matter over, and I came to the conclusion that I must approach the case from another aspect. But really, Watson, I am keeping you up, and I might just as well tell you all this on our way to Aldershot tomorrow. Thank you. You have gone rather too far to stop. It is quite certain that when Mrs. Barclay left the house at 7:30, she was on good terms with her husband. She was never, as I think I have said, ostentatiously affectionate, but she was heard by the coachman chatting with the colonel in a friendly fashion. Now it was equally certain that, immediately on her return, she had gone to the room in which she was least likely to see her husband, had flown to tea as an agitated woman will, fair, and finally, on his coming in to her, had broken into violent recriminations. Therefore, something had occurred between 7:30 and 9 o'clock which had completely altered her feelings towards him. But Miss Morrison had been with her during the whole of that hour and a half. It was absolutely certain, therefore, in spite of her denial, that she must know something of the matter. My first conjecture was that possibly there had been some passages between this young lady and the old soldier which the former had now confessed to the wife. That would account for the angry return, and also for the girl's denial that anything had occurred. Nor would it be entirely incompatible with most of the words overhead. But there was the reference to David, and there was the known affection of the colonel for his wife, to weigh against it, to say nothing of the tragic intrusion of this other man, which might, of course, be entirely disconnected with what had gone before. It was not easy to pick one's steps, but on the whole, I was inclined to dismiss the idea that there had been anything between the colonel and Miss Morrison, but more than ever convinced that the young lady held the clue as to what it was which had turned Mrs. Barclay to hatred of her husband. I took the obvious course, therefore, of calling upon Miss M., of explaining to her that I was perfectly certain that she held the facts in her possession, and of assuring her that her friend, Mrs. Barclay, might find herself in the dock upon a capital charge, unless the matter were cleared up. Miss Morrison is a little ethereal slip of a girl, with timid eyes and blonde hair, but I found her by no means wanting in shrewdness and common sense. She sat thinking for some time after I had spoken, and then, turning to me with a brisk air of resolution, she broke into a remarkable statement which I will condense for your benefit. I promised my friend that I would say nothing of the matter, and a promise is a promise, said she. But if I can really help her when so serious a charge is laid against her, and when her own mouth, poor darling, is closed by illness, then I think I am absolved from my promise. I will tell you exactly what happened upon Monday evening. We were returning from the Watt Street Mission? We were returning from the Watt Street Mission about 9:15. On our way, we had to pass through Hudson Street, which is a very quiet thoroughfare. There is only one lamp in it, upon the left-hand side, and as we approached this lamp, I saw a man coming towards us with his back very bent, and something like a box slung over one of his shoulders. He appeared to be deformed, for he carried his head low and walked with his knees bent. We were passing him when he raised his face to look at us in the circle of light thrown by the lamp, and as he did so, he stopped and screamed out in a dreadful voice, "My God, it's Nancy!" Mrs. Barclay turned as white as death, and would have fallen down had the dreadful-looking creature not caught hold of her. I was going to call for the police, but she, to my surprise, spoke quite civilly to the fellow. "I thought you had been dead this 30 years, Henry," said she, in a shaking voice. "So I have," said he, and it was awful to hear the tones that he said it in. He had a very dark, fearsome face, and a gleam in his eyes that comes back to me in my dreams. His hair and whiskers were shot with gray, and his face was all crinkled and puckered like a withered apple. "Just walk on a little way, dear," said Mrs. Barclay. "I want to have a word with this man. There's nothing to be afraid of." She tried to speak boldly, but she was still deadly pale and could hardly get her words out for the trembling of her lips. I did as she asked me, and they talked together for a few minutes. Then she came down the street with her eyes blazing, and I saw the crippled wretch standing by the lamp-post and shaking his clenched fists in the air as if he were made... as if he were made with rage. Mad with rage? Is it supposed to be mad with rage? As if he were mad with rage. I am getting mad with rage at these errors. Anyway, she never said a word until we were at the door here, when she took me by the hand and begged me to tell no one what had happened. "It's an old acquaintance of mine who has come down in the world," said she. When I promised her I would say nothing, she kissed me, and I have never seen her since. I have told you now the whole truth, and if I withheld it from the police, it is because I did not realize then the danger in which my dear friend stood. I know that it can only be to her advantage that everything should be known. There was her statement, Watson, and to me, as you can imagine, it was like a light on a dark night. Everything which had been disconnected before began at once to assume its true place, and I had a shadowy presentiment of the whole sequence of events. My next step, obviously, was to find the man who had produced such a remarkable impression upon Mrs. Barclay. If he were still in Aldershot, it should not be a very difficult matter. There are not such a very great number of civilians, and a deformed man was sure to have attracted attention. I spent a day in the search, and by evening, this very evening, Watson, I had run him down. The man's name is Henry Wood, and he lives in lodgings in this same street in which the ladies met him. He has only been 5 days in the place. In the character of a registration agent, I had a most interesting gossip with his landlady. The man is by trade a conjurer and performer, going round the canteens after nightfall and giving a little entertainment at each. He carries some creature about with him in that box, about which the landlady seemed to be in considerable trepidation, for she had never seen an animal like it. He uses it in some of his tricks, according to her account. So much the woman was able to tell me, and also that it was a wonder the man lived, seeing how twisted he was, and that he spoke in a strange tongue sometimes, and that for the last 2 nights she had heard him groaning and weeping in his bedroom. He was all right as far as money went, but in his deposit he had given her what looked like a bad florin. He showed it to me, Watson, she showed it to me, Watson, and it was an Indian rupee. So now, my dear fellow, you see exactly how we stand, and why it is I want you. It is perfectly plain that after the ladies parted from this man, he followed them at a distance, that he saw the quarrel between husband and wife through the window, that he rushed in, and that the creature which he carried in his box got loose. That is all very certain. But he is the only person in this world who can tell us exactly what happened in that room. And do you intend to ask him? Most certainly, but in the presence of a witness. And I am the witness. If you will be so good. If he can clear the matter up, well and good. If he refuses, we have no alternative but to apply for a warrant. Patriotic veteran, thank you for the raid. How is it going? How is it going? How is your stream? What were you up to? We are currently reading some Sherlock Holmes. You brought me peeps. Hello. How are you? It's good to see you. We are not flying currently. I'm sorry, but we have been trying to, well, we've been listening to the account of a potential murder, but potentially not a murder. There's all sorts of twists and turns. You could say it's rather crooked, as this is the crooked man. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. You're well, excellent, I'm glad. And hello, I love the emojis. I'll have to look at them a little bit closer. Nice, love them. Sorry, I've been able, no worries, been very busy. That is absolutely fine and understandable. I hope with good things. I hope good busy. And thank you for the follow, Iceman333. I appreciate it. So yes, so far there has been a potential murder. A man is dead, and he had been quarreling with his wife, and the wife fell into a faint, and so she can't say anything. So now there is a crooked man who has a creature in a box who is apparently there as well. So they're going to see him, and that's about it so far. So I hope that helps with continuing the story. Um, so yes, Sherlock's talking to Watson. Watson's going to be the witness. So, if you will be so good, if he can clear the matter up, well and good. If he refuses, we have no alternative but to apply for a warrant. But how do you know he'll be there when we return? You may be sure that I took some precautions. I have one of my Baker Street boys mounting guard over him, who would stick to him like a burr, go where he might. We shall find him in Hudson Street tomorrow, Watson, and meanwhile, I should be the criminal myself if I kept you out of bed any longer. Hello! What are we doing tonight? We're reading some Sherlock. We do flying on Tuesdays, but I'm a bookworm, so we do reading on Thursdays. And we're working through the Sherlock Holmes stories. So yes, this one is The Crooked Man. And so, yeah, this crooked man with a creature in a box is the witness to our mystery and murder. So yes, that's where we are currently at. We're about to go find this crooked man and see what he knows. So it was midday when we found ourselves at the scene of the tragedy, and, under my companion's guidance, we made our way at once to Hudson Street. In spite of his capacity for concealing his emotions, I could easily see that Holmes was in a state of suppressed excitement, while I was myself tingling with that half-sporting, half-intellectual pleasure which I invariably experienced when I associated myself with him in his investigations. "This is the street," said he, as we turned into a short thoroughfare, lined with plain, two-storied brick houses. "Ah, here is Simpson to report." "He's in all right, Mr. Holmes," cried a small street Arab, running up to us. "Hope this dream is better than the last one you watched." "Oh no, why?" "Cowboy fellow." "Why? What did he do?" And I hope it's good. It's a little different than my usual, but I appreciate y'all being cool with it, because I am. Books are my first love, so yeah, and planes are my recent love. But yes, I like to get me some fiction in my life, as I'm reading handbooks now at the moment. "Good, Simpson," said Holmes, patting him on the head. "Come along, Watson. This is the house." He sent in his card with a message that he had come on important business, and a moment later we were face to face with the man whom we had come to see. In spite of the warm weather, he was crouching over a fire, and the little room was like an oven. The man sat all twisted and huddled in his chair, in a way which gave an indescribable impression of deformity. But the face which he turned towards us, though worn and swarthy, must at some time have been remarkable for its beauty. He looked suspiciously at us now out of yellow-shot, bilious eyes, and, without speaking or rising, he waved towards two chairs. "Mr. Henry Wood, late of India, I believe," said Holmes affably. "I've come over this little matter of Colonel Barclay's death." "What should I know about that?" "That's what I want to ascertain. You know, I suppose, that unless the matter is cleared up, Mrs. Barclay, who is an old friend of yours, will in all probability be tried for murder." Okay. He's terrible. But what? Is that a chicken? 'Tis a chicken. Chicken is my mic stand. He is my co-pilot. And when we read spooky stuff, he is my security chicken. So yes, he's I love my chicken. He's very squat and fat and has cute little wings. So Cowboy's my best love. Thank you for the follow, Patriot View. I appreciate it. And again, yes, so I do. I am a pilot in real life. I'm in training to be an instructor. So we do the flying streams, which I assume is what you all are coming from. But yes, I also do this as well. You have an emotional support chicken. Aren't they the best? An 8-piece. He's an 8-piece and comes with a biscuit. Sounds delicious, and now I'm hungry. You have 29 of them. Nice, nice. Yes, and they are roaming around the yard, eating grass and bugs, and enjoying life. Sure, you come check out the show on Monday nights. Oh, it's not Monday nights. Okay, sounds good. I will. I'll have to look. Maybe Monday nights. Okay. Papa Beach has no emotional support animal. Do you need one? Yes. Everyone needs an emotional support animal. And chickens are number one. All right. So, your friend may be tried for murder. The man gave a violent start. I don't know who you are, he cried, nor how you come to know what you do know, but will you swear that this is true that you tell me? Why, they are only waiting for her to come to her senses to arrest her. My God, are you in the police yourself? No. What business is it of yours, then? It's every man's business to see justice done. You can take my word that she is innocent. Then you are guilty. No, I am not. Who killed Colonel James Barclay, then? It was a just providence that killed him. But mind you this, that if I had knocked his brains out, as it was in my heart to do, he would have no more than his due from my hands. If his own guilty conscience had not struck him down, it is likely enough that I might have had his blood upon my soul. You want me to tell the story? Well, I don't know why I shouldn't, for there's no cause for me to be ashamed of it. You came from Truck Sim. Excellent. Okay, join you sometime. Okay, sounds good. I haven't gotten into the Truck Sim stuff, but that sounds cool. I assume it's just like airplane sim, but like with trucks. Yeah? Thank you for the follow, patriotic veteran. But in trucks, exactly. And trucks are also cool. Yes, we have the only truck that I am very familiar with is the fuel truck at my home airport. And it was funny because I haven't been to my home airport in a while. I've been flying out of my commercial instructor's airport. And so I went to go fly that airplane, and the owner came out and chatted with me, and he actually asked me, like, you remember how it all works? And I was like, yes, I do. I'm very familiar with the old fuel truck. Yeah, it's awesome. And you drive from Alaska to Mexico and across the U.S. So how do you decide where to go? Just like in the moment, or do you have like specific like routes from the beginning? Way more customizable. Ooh, okay, cool. And they support VR. Oh, nice. Okay. Any paint you want? Any lights? Any loads, trailers, etc.? Anything. You even have a cat in your cab. Oh, he's a cat. That's so cute. Is it based off of a cat in real life? In the moment, okay? Sounds good. Depends on where you want to go. Fair enough. So do you have like a set like distance that you go in a time frame? Or do you like figure it out one day and then you do half of it and then like do the rest of it the next time? It does. It sounds like fun. Okay. It was in this way, sir. You see me now with my back like a camel and my ribs. Sorry. It was in this way, sir. You see me now with my back like a camel and my ribs all awry. But there was a time when Corporal Henry Wood was the smartest man in the 117th foot. We were in India then, in cantonments, at a place we'll call Bertie. Barclay, who died the other day, was sergeant in the same company as myself, and the belle of the regiment, aye, and the finest girl that ever had the breath of life between her lips, was Nancy Devoy, the daughter of the color sergeant. There were 2 men that loved her, and 1 that she loved, and you'll smile when you look at this poor thing huddled before the fire and hear me say that it was for my good looks that she loved me. Well, though I had her heart, her father was set upon her marrying Barclay. I was a harum-scarum, reckless lad, and he had had an education, and was already marked for the sword belt. But the girl held true to me, and it seemed that I would have had her when the mutiny broke out, and all hell was loose in the country. We were shut up in Bertie, the regiment of us, with half a with half a battery of artillery, a company of Sikhs, and a lot of civilians and womenfolk. There were 10,000 rebels round us, and they were as keen as a set of terriers round a rat cage. About the second week of it, our water gave out, and it was a question whether we could communicate with General Neal's column, which was moving up country. It was our only chance, for we could not hope to fight our way out with all the women and children. So I volunteered to go out and to warn General Neal of our danger. My offer was accepted, and I talked it over with Sergeant Barclay, who was supposed to know the ground better than any other man, and who drew up a route by which I might get through the rebel lines. At 10 o'clock, the same night, I started off upon my journey. There were 1,000 lives to save, but it was of only one that I was thinking when I dropped over the wall that night. Okay, getting back. Depends on what you want to do time-wise. Okay, rolled about 1,000 miles through Mexico tonight. Okay, I'm trying to think. 60 miles an hour. That's a lot of miles. In American Truck Sim, okay. Time is 2 times normal speed in town. Okay, and 20 times normal speed out on the highway. Alrighty, so it doesn't take long to get from city to city. Okay, that sounds good. I was concerned for a second. You went from Nashville to West Mexico today. Nice. Okay. Took 6 hours. Still a long time. Amazing. Very cool though. That sounds like a fun time. Have a good night. Sounds good. Give you a follow and come hang out on Monday. I will. Sounds good. Cool. You have a good night as well. Thanks for being here. And yeah, have a good night and a great, today's Thursday, right? Have a good Friday and weekend and stuff. So yeah, all the good things. My way down. Okay. My way ran down a dried up water course, which we hoped would screen me from the enemy's sentries. But as I crept round the corner of it, I walked right into 6 of them, who were crouching down in the dark, waiting for me. In an instant, I was stunned with a blow and bound hand and foot. But the real blow was to my heart, and not to my head, for as I came to and listened to as much as I could understand of their talk, I heard enough to tell me that my comrade, the very man who had arranged the way that I was to take, had betrayed me by means of a native servant into the hands of the enemy. Well, there's no need for me to dwell on that part of it. You know now what James Barclay was capable of. Bertie was relieved by Neal next day, but the rebels took me away with them in their retreat. And it was many a long year before ever I saw a white face again. I was tortured and tried to get away, and was captured and tortured again. You can see for yourselves the state in which I was left. Some of them that fled into Nepal took me with them, and then afterwards I was up past Darjeeling. The hill folk up there murdered the rebels who had me, and I became their slave for a time until I escaped. But instead of going south, I had to go north, until I found myself among the Afghans. There I wandered about for many a year, and at last came back to the Punjab, where I lived mostly among the natives and picked up a living by the conjuring tricks that I had learned. What use was it for me, a wretched cripple, to go back to England or to make myself known to my old comrades? Even my wish for revenge would not make me do that. I had rather that Nancy and my old pals should think of Harry Wood as having died with a straight back than see him living and crawling with a stick like a chimpanzee. They never doubted that I was dead, and I meant that they never should. I heard that Barclay had married Nancy, and that he was rising rapidly in the regiment, but even that did not make me speak. Also taking off sounds good. Hope you have a good stream. Thank you. Enjoy your night. Thank you. And again, thank you for the raid. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I look forward to checking you out. And I hope you have a good night as well. And also all the good things. But when one gets old, one has a longing for home. For years I've been dreaming of the bright green fields and the hedges of England. At last I determined to see them before I died. I saved enough to bring me across, and then I came here where the soldiers are. for I know their ways and how to amuse them, and so earn enough to keep me." "Your narrative is most interesting," said Sherlock Holmes. "I have already heard of your meeting with Mrs. Barclay, and your mutual recognition. You then, as I understand, followed her home, and saw through the window an altercation between her husband and her, in which she doubtless cast his conduct to you in his teeth. Your own feelings overcame you, and you ran across the lawn and broke in upon them." "I did, sir, and at the sight of me he looked as I have never seen a man look before, and over he went with his head on the fender. But he was dead before he fell. I read death on his face as plain as I can read that text over the fire. The bare sight of me was like a bullet through his guilty heart. And then Nancy fainted, and I caught up the key of the door from her hand, intending to unlock it and get help. But as I was doing it, it seemed to me better to leave it alone and get away, for the thing might look black against me, and anyway my secret would be out if I were taken. In my haste I thrust the key into my pocket and dropped my stick while I was chasing Teddy, who had run up the curtain. When I got him into his box, from which he had slipped, I was off as fast as I could run." "Who's Teddy?" asked Holmes. The man leaned over and pulled up the front of a kind of hutch in the corner. In an instant, out there slipped a beautiful reddish-brown creature, thin and lithe, with the legs of a stoat, a long, thin nose, and a pair of the finest red eyes that ever I saw in an animal's head. "It's a mongoose!" I cried. "Well, some call them that, and some call them ichneumon." "Ichneumon," said the man. "Snake catcher is what I call them, and Teddy is amazing quick on cobras. I have one here without the fangs, and Teddy catches it every night to please the folk in the canteen." "Any other point, sir?" "Well, we may have to apply to you again if Mrs. Barclay should prove to be in serious trouble. In that case, of course, I'd come forward. But if not, there is no object in raking up this scandal against a dead man, foully as he has acted. You have at least the satisfaction of knowing that for 30 years of his life, his conscience bitterly reproached him for this wicked deed. Ah, there goes Major Murphy on the other side of the street. Goodbye, Wood. I want to learn if anything has happened since yesterday." "Ooh, moonshine, is it? Maybe, potentially." We were in time." "Yes. We were in time to overtake the Major before he reached the corner." "Ah, Holmes," he said, "I suppose you have heard that all this fuss has come to nothing." "What then?" "The inquest is just over. The medical evidence showed conclusively that death was due to apoplexy. You see, it was quite a simple case after all." "Oh, remarkably superficial," said Holmes, smiling. "Come, Watson, I don't think we shall be wanted in Aldershot any more." "There's one thing," said I, as we walked down to the station. "If the husband's name was James, and the other was Henry, what was this talk about David?" "That one word, my dear Watson, should have told me the whole story, had I been the ideal reasoner which you are so fond of depicting. It was evidently a term of reproach." "Of reproach? Oh my gosh. Yes, David strayed a little occasionally, you know, and on one occasion in the same direction as Sergeant James Barclay. You remember the small affair of Uriah and Bathsheba. My biblical knowledge is a trifle rusty, I fear, but you will find the story in the 1st or 2nd of Samuel." See, and again, all of these different points that some of them don't even... The fact that it does come down to whenever Sherlock is talking about how he does his methods, and it's all separating the pieces that matter and the pieces that don't matter, having those little details, like the mongoose, how much was it actually a part of it? And like the whole David thing, where it's a name that didn't belong to any of the people involved, but again, kind of like he said, if he had been thinking about it a little bit more and thought about it in that way, would have blown the whole thing open. So bringing in those little pieces that may or may not matter, but just adds so perfectly to the story, I do. The writing just, it's amazing. It, I don't know. I don't know if it was just me, but like as I was reading it, um, it was this one was very much a explaining, like the story was being explained rather than the story happening, if that makes sense. Um, which again, it swaps back and forth in the different stories, so it's not like every story does this, but it did. It seemed like it was a lot of explanation versus actual of the action. And then it ended up being not murderous or anything at all. And now I'm wondering if that's like a an indication. So if like reading the stories from now on, if it's basically all, if the story is being told rather than the action happening, does that mean that there's not really much to the story in the end? Like there is no murderer to catch? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Do share? What do you mean? Oh, are you talking about my secret um thirst quencher wetting my whistle? Yes, cheers, sharing. Guess what you found? Actually, several things you discovered. Oh goodness. What? I'm curious. Yes. Well, what are we looking at? That's not me reading it. That's definitely not me reading it. Yes, I mean, I could, I guess, I can throw these out there. Like, um, I think these, what's the thing? I think this site has all of them on there. I think it even has like Count of Monte Cristo and stuff. This is a pretty good site for, um, that sort of stuff. So if you miss things, the one that you missed earlier was the Reigate puzzle or the Reigate Squire, one of the two. But yes, then you do. Then you have the vocal and you have the textual. So, guess what? What? You're moving back to Missouri next month. Excellent. So, do you already have it planned and prepared and all of the things? And you looking forward to it? Ready for it? Thanks for the info. Absolutely. Hello. How's it going? Hope your night is swell. It has been swell. We've been reading fiction, and I need fiction in my life. There were some good puzzles, and they had a cute little mongoose in it. So, well, less long, or less small. Little is what I said. But yeah, it sounds so cute. I hope yours is as well, and I hope your studies are going well as well. Did you do some relaxing, and are you like into it now, or what's happening? Also, looking. It sent me to an index, so I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to be looking at. But very cool. So I see in the URL, it's the radio ones. I still have not been able to listen to the radio things. I have it up. It's sitting up on my laptop, and I haven't been able to. I finished the website for my instructors airports website. I finished that up for that event, so I'm glad to have that done. But it was good. It was good fun. So I'm hoping I'll be able to have a little bit more time, but I don't think so. Finalizing details this week. You're taking a management position with a window installation company there. Excellent. Sounds good. Congrats. Yay. 2 days and you're in head first. All right. Sounds good. Cranking it out. You'll probably be done before I am. So you'll have to start sharing stuff with me at some point. And beginning a J3 Cup build. So, beginning, do you have all the parts? Have you been planning on it for a while and you're just now going to be able to get started on it? Full radio scripts. Excellent. Okay. So, can I... Oh, so some of them I can listen to as well as see the scripts? Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Are there specifically Holmes ones, or is it just... Are you just showing me all that is available? That is. It's super cool. Apparently, CFI track ride is September 15th. You got a month. It'll be good. It'll work out fine. No, it will. Honestly, I do. I assume your thing is tailored to that. So you will. You're going to be just fine. Ordering Cromoli, sorry, next week to start the fuselage. Okay, very cool. Wait. So you're starting before you move though. So that okay, sounds good. I had my timeline messed up. Cool. Well, I do. I hope that goes well. Do you have a timeline for when it will be finished? Not to get ahead of you. Holmes is under S. Okay. It's pretty down there. There it is. Found it. Thank you. Ooh, cool. There's a Sherlock Holmes the night before Christmas. Interesting. Scary. It will. It'll be good. And don't really. This is what threw me is looking forward and seeing where I have to end up. Like it did. It made me like almost not even want to start, or not kind of. It did. It hindered me a little bit from starting because I was just like, I don't feel like I'm ever gonna get there. So just do it the one step at a time, and before you know it, you're gonna be so solid, and you're not even gonna what's the word? Understand how you could possibly have been so nervous about it. So yes. No, you're having it shipped to Missouri. Okay. Figure a 3-year basic build, 4 to complete. Oh, okay, sounds good. 900-hour project minimum. Okay, sounds good. Oh, that'll be so cool to have done though. And like for you, because I remember you had the one thing where it was a didn't you have like an auction sort of a thing too as well at one point, or am I thinking of things completely incorrectly? But still, that's super awesome. Oh, I do. I look forward to hearing about the journey. So yes, that was the Reigate puzzle and the Crooked Man. And again, I love the distinctions between things because again, I always pit the two stories that we read against each other, where the first one was like the Reigate puzzle. It sounds so tame and innocent. And again, it starts out with they go to a little country and, oh, there was a burglary. This won't be too bad. Oh gosh, it's murder. And then they go through it and they figure out that there's demon person behind it and everything. So it just kind of goes a little, ooh. And then you go to this one where it's the Crooked Man, which kind of gives off a little bit of a what word am I trying to think of? Like dark and mysterious, sort of macabre tone, right? And it does. It starts out there was a murder, and oh no, like violent altercation between man and wife, and a scream, and oh, dead faint, and the man's countenance who died was a vision of horror and stuff like that. And it just comes to, yes, there was some terrible stuff in the past, but he deserved it, and it was nobody's fault, and there was a cute creature in it. So again, like it does, just the way that the writing twists and turns in different ways from story to story and within the stories and between the stories. And yeah, it is. It's just so good. You will be buying a single plays experimental to supplement until it gets done. Okay, sounds good. Excellent. Okay. Oh, excellent. That'll be fun to supplement. Love it. Do you have you looked at them? Looked at any at all so far? Are you looking at it right now? Crooked plays on 2 levels. Yes. The disformed man and the Colonel's crooked behavior. Amazing. Yes. That was excellent. Ugh. This is why I love this stuff. It's like there are like people make jokes about like English. I was an English major. Surprise. And like how, oh, you read something and it's like, oh, the curtains were blue to symbolize the sadness and blah. And it's like, no, the curtains were blue because I decided the curtains were blue. But like, and then you have stuff like that though, and it's just like, yeah, just painting with words basically. It just makes me so happy. Yes. Thank you for that. You have looked at Hymax out of Rhode Island, just not certain you want to fly a 400-pound aircraft 1,500 miles. Fair enough. Okay. Sounds good. Well, you do. You got options and you got a little time, I think. So you will. You'll find one that fits and it'll be good and it'll be fun. And I look forward to hearing about it. Oh, so yeah, we will go like this and go like, where's the thing? Boom. And go like, la da da da, la la. Yeah. That was. I do. I need the fiction. I need the fiction in my life. That was. It was just. It used to be such a large part of my life, and it has slowly gone out, and it does. It makes me sad. So being able to do this, I appreciate you guys being cool with it and still hanging out and enjoying it, hopefully as well. So yeah. Again, that was the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, the Reigate Puzzle, or the Reigate Squire, depending on which version you get, apparently. And the Crooked Man. I don't think we'll be doing anything on Sunday. We'll probably not get into Sunday things again for at least another couple of weeks. Might not be until like September. So we'll fly on Tuesday again. As per usual. And then, yeah, we'll continue with Sherlock on Thursday. I may have to not, now that I think about that. So, we will. For now, we're flying on Tuesday. If something changes, if anyone is not my Discord, I will let you know on my Discord, if anything changes. Because, yeah, I just realized I might not be able to do next Thursday. So, we'll see. Radio Scripts has a number of radio mystery scripts. I do. I love mysteries. I love puzzles. Because it is. It's just like the pieces, they fit. They fit and they do the things. And it just makes a big thing. And it's, I don't know. It's just kind of my thing. The things. I'm so good with words. For someone who likes to read, I just apparently use very few words. Excellent. So I will. I'm going to keep that up as well, so that at some point I will be able to look at it. There. Okay. Checking the thing. Sorry. All right. Yeah. But yeah, like there's some things. Trying to figure some things out. I am still working on the still working on CFI stuff. Still trying to get comfortable in the right seat so that I can start soloing in the right seat so that I can get even more comfortable with it, because you don't get really comfortable doing something unless you're doing it by yourself. Still working on the lesson plans. I think I'm getting somewhat better as I'm going through things, but that remains to be seen. I'm trying to get some night experience again in with my instructor because I've been trying to do a passenger flight at night for a while, and the last night flight that I did with my instructor, we ended up doing an IFR flight and an approach to almost minimums at night, and it ended up being a somewhat sketchy landing, at least for my comfort level, and it kind of spooked me a little bit. So I want to do just a normal, chill night flight again with him, with my instructor, so that I can feel comfortable again doing the night flying with passenger. So that has to happen. Still have to run up to my instrument flight school to take care of some business. And yeah, fly my home airplane at some point. And yeah, right seat solo. And then some other stuff, which I will potentially talk about at some point, but we'll see. So yeah, so there's things going on. It's busy and for various reasons. And yeah, we'll go over stuff. So yes, again, Tuesday for flying, Thursday, hopefully, for continuing the reading. Bloodstone Song Night Flight. Okay, now I have to look it up. Hello, by the way, how's it going? Is that like the song that I need to put in my headset when I go flying? Because I totally will, maybe, unless I have to probably pay attention, is also the question. You have, okay, FSI Sunday to Wednesday in ICT. I understood everything except the acronym. So what does that mean? Things and stuff. I know, I am. Again, I do. It's just my own ability to express myself is in such contrast to what I read. It's like I can read the things, I can understand the things, but I cannot speak the things. It's some R&B. Cool, excellent. I will look that up and I will check it out. Thank you. I always like finding new songs. Cause I don't know if this is anything. I used to find all sorts of different songs that I would put on my playlist and I would listen to, and it would be like, oh, it'd be excellent. And like nowadays, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. It's like I don't connect with songs the way that I used to. And I'm just like, oh no, I do. I feel like I'm getting old. Okay, FSI Flight Safety, ICT Wichita. Oh, okay. You have Flight Safety Sunday to Wednesday in Wichita. So what is that? Is it that's good, right? That's cool. That's going to be how does that work? Like I don't know what that entails. Like what is it for specifically? If I can ask. King Air Refresher. Oh, okay, very cool. Okay, well, I do. I hope that goes well, and I look forward to hearing about it. Yes, because yeah, I do. I like hearing the different things that can and that have to be done and accomplished for things. Gives me a better idea of what I can and should be doing with my life right now. More for insurance rates. Oh, okay, sounds good. Yeah, I still got to get into that sort of stuff. Oi. I just want to fly planes. Why can't we just fly planes? Fair enough. Ugh, paperwork and all that sort of stuff. Gross. But okay, fair. All right. So yeah. So I think we went over the schedule and stuff. So I think that's about it. And we'll call it. I know these tend to be shorter streams. The stories are fairly short. I'm not sure I'd want to do a third one though, because I don't know if you noticed my moonshine. Not moonshine, just water. it does. It takes a bit. It takes a bit out of me. So I babble even more than usual. Bloodstone also did Natural High. Loving you more till the day I die. Okay, I will look those both up. I appreciate it. Oop, okay. Keeping that. Oops. Gosh darn it. I have way too many tabs open. Hang on, let me delete a couple. There, okay. Natural. Gosh darn it. There we go. Perfect. Okay, thank you. It's a game. It's always a game, but I hate that though. I don't like. Again, for those of you who don't know, like I did, I wanted to act. I was gonna be an actress for a long time, and eventually I realized it wasn't, the industry wasn't what I wanted to be a part of anymore. And once I decided that and got out of it, I was like, I could look back on it and look at it more, what's the word? With a more unbiased viewpoint, from a more unbiased viewpoint. And it's like, it's not, I don't like playing games. Why does it have to be that way? And maybe that's a bit of a childish way of looking at things, but yeah, like, yes, that is how it is. It is how it is, but it doesn't have to be. It is how it is, but it doesn't have, you know what I mean? I don't know. It just ticks me off. If everybody would just do with it, I don't know. 40 plus years of flying taught you the rules and how to navigate it. See, and that's, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm just so against it now, though. And that's why I've liked the flying, though, is that it has felt like less of a game than what I had been used to. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a different game. I just have to learn to play a different game. Maybe it's still a game, but it's one that I can be okay with playing then. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. Why can't it be a game? But it is a game. Ugh. I don't know. Again, so far, like the aviation stuff, I've been really happy with, and yeah. So that yeah. It is a game, right? I don't know. But again, hopefully more of a, instead of, let me think. Okay. I'm going to have to come up with this. Like, what a really good analogy for this. I'll have to think on that. I won't make you guys sit here like watching me go. Sorry. It has rules, performance, expectations, and you make your own luck. Which is fine. Which is fine. I'm okay with that. I don't like the unnecessary games, if that makes sense. And so far that's not what I have found. So I think semantically I think we're good with that. So, and by making your own luck, I assume that's a networking, which I'm so good at. But no, I do. Where it's like, at least putting the work in makes a lot more of a difference. Shed the unneeded. Fair. Like the snake in the story, kind of. That was mangled by the mongoose. Or not mangled. Sorry. Making connections that aren't there. Yeah. No, and again, it is. I just have like a visceral reaction to like game, but I think it's all right. I think it's all right. You find we all get the luck we deserve, and I hope so. I hope so. I kind of do feel the same way. Um, from other perspectives, it may not seem that way, but I also have my own philosophical, existential sort of an thought or understanding or idea, which makes it come out well anyway. But we won't get into that this evening. That's for another evening. So yes, we will call it there. And we have gone over the things. We had ourselves some good fiction. I did. That was nice. That was good. Have a negative take on the word game. I do. Look at it as a positive. And that's why. Like, I do need to swap my understanding of it, cuz like there's different games. There like take different board games. There's some games that you don't like to play, and there's other games that you do like to play, and you just decide to play the games that you like to play. And that is a great and much better way of looking at it. So, yes, that's better. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I have just like, yeah, that like immediate negative reaction, but we're good. We're good. Had me in the right seat for 10 hours to BA. What's BA? You to understand. Badass. I can say that because it was in the story. I would understand. Okay. Like, in the case of I get to fly along for 10 hours, I am so down for that. Buenos Aires. Okay. That sounds amazing. I'm down. When are we going? Yes. And again, like I said, it is. They all do have their games, just some they're more enjoyable to play than others. So, oh, we talk it out. Okay, sounds good. Fair enough. All right. Yeah. Well, and again, yes. Thank you for putting up with my little rant and bringing me around and getting us to a good solid place there. And yeah, it was good. And I hope that all goes well. I'm sure it will. And yeah, whatever it's for, I hope is going to be good as well. Not your first time voting in my bearings. Sounds good. Okay. I have been FO in a, I don't know, can you call an FO in a plane that you don't need 2 people to fly it? We're all at different places on this. Right, exactly. Hello, how are you? I hope you're well. And that's something that it is. I love that so much because yeah, we are all in different places, but we all like agree on certain things and we're all willing to come together and stuff. So bearings happen over time, right? And yes, at very different speeds as well. So yeah. Well, and you find them yourself with a little help from outside. Yes. Okay. So I had a thing. Sorry, I was doing research looking at like teachery, instruction-y, whatever, like things for the CFI. And somebody said something. It was on a Reddit post, so I guess take it with a grain of salt. But it was like somebody was unhappy with doing instructing stuff. Like they have students that don't care about it, they don't come prepared, and they just don't seem to like give a dang. And somebody said, well, okay, you're not a teacher. So a teacher is the one that brings the knowledge. You are an instructor. You are someone who takes the knowledge that is already there, builds off of that, and fills in where necessary. And that is what, like, I am okay with. I don't want to be the one that's like specifically bringing the knowledge. I want to like give the homework and like have that independence, that independent learning happening over here. And then I just simply come in and help frame it and adjust it and build it. So it is. That's been, I don't know, thinking about it from the point of like, okay, let's say the student that I have has absolutely no knowledge. Trying to figure out how to do that and present that is just so weird to me, especially when my own experience with the flight training was doing the ground on my own, doing all that stuff outside of coming in for a lesson. So, yeah, I don't know. It is. There's just so many different avenues with this that I'm finding. And it's just, yeah, trying to figure out where I'm working, where I'm going to be working on it and working from it. And they don't depend on just one or two others. Lots of outside experience is needed, right? Because you have to like balance all of the different things, because so many people do things so differently. And not that any of them are necessarily wrong. It's just that in regionally things are different. Airport to airport things are different. All sorts of different scenarios. There's different things that work better for each of these, and you get that from multiple different people, and then you can boil it down with yourself, which is going to work for me and which works in different circumstances. Yeah, it is. It's so interesting. It's a lot. It's so much, but it's been so much fun, and I do enjoy actually finding all those different avenues. So it gets to be a lot at times, but it is good. What was my take on the solo pilot meltdown? I felt so bad. Like, I tried to put myself in the situation, and I would hope that I would not do that. I thought back again. I thought back to my own solo, and I definitely had certain feelings like that, maybe. But for me personally, I have a thing of, I know that I need to not freaking panic. So if something happens, I'm just gonna focus on what I'm supposed to be doing. And if I feel the little panickings, gotta be like, no panickings, not now, and just focus on the stuff. Granted, the hyper focusing could be an issue as well, but it was. I definitely the go around thing could definitely be a thing, because that is one of my things. That was something that I was specifically taught to, like, not just the landings, but having the go arounds down. And something that from my own research as well, finding that when things go wrong with students, a lot of times is messing up a go around. So, like, accidentally yanking back on the yoke, retracting flaps too quickly. So for me personally, I made sure that I was paying attention when I was doing the go around or a touch and go or something like that, that I was not dumping flaps. I was not yanking the nose back too much, that I was making sure that in that moment I was doing what I was supposed to do. And I did. I ended up unintentionally practicing a bunch of go around solo when I couldn't figure out how to land with like a 6-knot crosswind over at a different airport, and then I came back and landed once. So I can definitely see how if that wasn't something that was, although like that just, it seems like it should be after landings, go around, and not even after landings, with landings, go arounds should be one of the big things that you know how to do. That's something that I'm not flying right seat solo until I am comfortable and confident that I can go around. Because if something goes wrong with my landings, I'm much more comfortable flying in the air than trying to get that thing on the ground. So if I can go around, I can come back around, make it better, make it as perfect as possible, try again. So it's just so important that, yeah, flying is always different. It is always the same, yet always different. Exactly. So confusing, but so interesting. Never gets old. And now look at it as the CFI who released the student. Right, and that's what okay. My thing is the opposite, is where I feel like I would wait too long to let a student go. So that's why, like, it would be so great to have context for that, because maybe it was just the perfect student, and something just, like, yeah, snapped. And yeah, maybe they hadn't practiced. That's another thing too that I found with my own comfort, is I would get nervous about stuff because I do really well in the lessons, but that's in a sterile environment where nothing's wrong is going to happen. I'm following it as it's laid out and everything. What happens when something happens that I am not expecting? So yeah, so that I would like to understand whether that had been a focus at all in their training. Such an interesting video, right? Many people on YouTube commenting different things. Yeah. Just imagine everyone had a good, honest debrief after that. Yes, and can move forward in the way that is safest for everyone. I would hope so. Because there were certain things said, that you hope that it was just the depiction, and that once everything was settled down, yeah, everybody got together and it worked out and they talked it over, and it was a really good learning experience. Because at that point, if you keep going with it, that's such a good learning experience. Because when something that potent happens, it's the best way. It's the best way to learn. Because, like, oh god, I don't even want to say this because I don't want to frickin' jinx myself. I have not yet been involved in an actual, like, full out emergency. Knock on all the frickin' wood. And then there's other people who have had a variety of different emergencies, and they do it, they get through it, and they know that they can handle it. So it's like, yeah, you don't want the emergencies to happen, but it also does kind of really throw you in there where you have to be able to handle it. So once you do, you learn from it. You're way better prepared for next time. Not only doing the GA, but when to make that call. Right. And I guess I would have to listen to it again to, like, kind of, I don't know, try and figure out, because did they actually... I can't remember, like, what all of this actual facts that came from that were. Because was it like gusty or something and she bounced it? A lot in that video that one could break down: the readiness, going around, decision and timing thereof, the CFI, etc., etc. Right. I'm hoping, because sometimes you get in the comments people who are like, oh, I know this story, whether or not it's true, like, can take it or leave it. But yeah, just to, if there was like more context, just to be able to understand it from all of the different perspectives, from student perspective, from ATC perspective, from CFI perspective, like all of it. And the only time you felt discomfort in all of flying career was 9/11. Right. Never trained for that. Right. And that's like top where that is. That shows, like, what you are, what you're made of. So that's insane. And the video started after the GA, so we don't know. Right, exactly. So yeah, Cause I mean, it is like, I feel like, I don't know if it's just, my, I wouldn't think so, but like my home airport, it's like the old school aviation stuff where it's like they're gonna make you uncomfortable because that's what you need to do. So chopping stuff and doing stuff out of the blue to make sure that you're gonna react properly. So I don't know. And I don't know. You've seen the memes where it's like the part 61 versus 141, and it's like part 141 is like no crosswind over like 6 knots and no flying to these airports. You can only fly to like this one airport, and you can, yeah. And then the part 61 is like, yeah, just bring the plane back in one piece, and that's kind of optional. So I would be curious about like that background as well, like how that flight school does things, and if they have certain maybe procedures that they don't allow or something like that. You know what I mean? That's true. Never mind. I I thought there was something about that though. Ever be a local field with a pilot that is just a walking accident waiting to happen? um there is a pilot who I am buddies with, who owns his own plane, lives near my airport, like just right across the way. And he is an older gentleman who has been in a variety of accidents, apparently. But yeah, I don't know. He's the sweetest thing, but I have heard from my instructor that it would potentially maybe not be that great of a idea to fly with, which I feel bad about because he owns a Skywagon and I want to go in his Skywagon. I think. Hang on. Or it's just a 182. If that's the same as a Skywagon, I don't know. Thank you for the follow, Adam Rasty. We're chatting about flying stuff with Sherlock on the screen, but these are our two contrasting things that go together. So I appreciate you being here, and enjoying the conversation. So yeah, uh, so that is something that does come into play because I've jumped into planes with other people, but they've only been instructors. Like my instructors have a flight that they're taking, and I'm allowed to go in. So, I mean, as aviation people, we want to go fly in the planes, right? So yeah, I guess it does. I guess it does depend on, yeah, past experience, and if you get in the plane, whether or not they did a pre-flight and ran the checklist, that might be an indication. So yeah, I assume, have you been in that sort of a situation? Have you noticed that? But no, like that has been one of the things too, where you hear about, I think my instructor just told me about one of these where you hear about somebody who had an accident and potentially didn't make it, and then it's like, oh, it's really sad. And then you also hear like, well, that was kind of assumed to, it was only a matter of time, which is really sad. Like that makes it even more sad because what do you do? What can you do in that situation? You that falls under making your own luck clause, that's absolutely fair, I guess. Well, and would you be comfortable if you jumped in a plane with somebody and something went wrong? You would be able to handle that situation then? Is that one of those things? Because that would definitely not be me at this point. I could not handle, like, if I had to, I would try, but would I be able to? Questionable. So, yeah. I don't know. It is. there's so many different sides of things, and it's fun. It's fun navigating it. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming and concerning at times, but just the nature of what we're in. Depends on the plane, but you can think you can land anything in one piece. See, I want to get to that level. That's yes, that's awesome. Yeah, someday. I'm trying to think of like something really out there. Like a glider or rotorcraft. 23K plus hours helps. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. I'm so, what's the word? I'm so impatient though. But that's awesome. Someday I'll be able to say that. Okay, I'm sorry. I've just been having a great time chatting with y'all. And I love the different conversations and being able to talk over this stuff with different people and get different perspectives. I do. I appreciate it so much because it does. Every like milestone, it's like, oh yes, accomplish this, and then I get back into like the training and the learning and stuff, and it's like I don't know anything. I have no capabilities. So yeah, being able to like go over stuff with other people who know stuff is very helpful. Only ticket you don't have is amphib and balloon. Okay, so is amphib different than seaplane and balloon? Are you going to get them at this point? You should. You just round it all out. Because how much does it take? How much does it take to get amphib? You always go into anything knowing you are not the smartest person in the room. Okay, fair. Right, fair. Yeah. I feel like I do that too, but like not deliberately. But like yes, deliberately. I don't know how to put that to explain what I mean. It's like I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. Seaplane, amphib, same old thing. Do it. Okay, I was going to get my seaplane this summer. I was like, that was my plan. And then I got into instructing, like the instructor training. And I was like, well, I guess that's not happening yet. Do it. Do it. Do both of them. I feel like it shouldn't take too much. Do it. I'm sorry. I won't get ahead of you. That would be cool. Just get them all. Gotta catch them all. Aviation edition. All right, I'm gonna have to get to bed. I have auntie stuff to be doing as well tomorrow. So I will. We'll call it there. You know the best place to get a sailplane ticket in a week? Isn't there one in like Florida? I don't know where. Is it at Oshkosh? Yes, I am curious to know. Because so we're doing instructing now. We're instructing now. We're gonna CFI training now. Gonna get that hopefully sometime this fall. Beginning of winter? I don't know. My instructor is leaving. He has class date in like November. So, and he has stuff going on in like October. So we're aiming for September, but we'll see. And then after that, hopefully start instructing. I want to get the AGI, the IGI at some point. Like to get my multi-engine once I start making a little money. And then at that point, probably like next summer then. Yeah, I would hope then to do the sailplane. North Shore of Oahu, a retired 747 has a school. Oh, that sounds really cool. Sounds awesome, actually. I thought I had the MEL. I do not. Nope, 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 not yet. I've been doing barren flights with my instructor and then the other instructor of the flight school, but I am not getting any hours for them. I'm just helping with radios and getting like the weather experience and stuff. If that's why you thought I did. 'Cause I don't. I've been thinking about it a little bit more. There's potentially um a way for me to also get it done in like a weekend or a week or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know if I want to drop the dough on that right away. So, shut down one of the engines and log the time. Is that legal? I feel like it's not. But I mean, oh, yeah. I will. And that's one of the things is neither of the two instructors has an instructor's uh, certificate for multi-engine. So it's like, well then, what am I even doing here? I am learning and having a great time, so that's fine. And then I don't have to pay for it, which is also fine. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah. Again, flying on Tuesday. I think we'll continue with the IFR and VATSIM. Still trying to get comfortable with the lesson plans before actually trying to present them. So we'll keep doing what we're doing. And yeah, more Sherlock next Thursday, maybe. So talk later. You have FSI next week. Sounds good. And a pilot's reveal party next weekend. Oh, so are you flying for that? Is that what you mean? That'll be cool. And yes, I do. I hope that goes well. And I hope to hear about it. So yeah, to whoever got lost and found their way here or found their way back, thanks for being here and putting up with me and hopefully enjoying the story. And yeah, even if you're more into the aviation stuff, we appreciate you letting me do some fiction stuff. And yeah, if I've forgotten anything, brain is mush, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And oh, she reveals Southwest Airlines or United Airlines. Oh, okay. Is this a new thing with pilots? Then that's funny. Is it like a big thing as well? Like they do the colors pop out of a box or something, or might as well use an airplane for it. That's so funny. Very cool. Well, yes, I hope to hear about that as well. 2 hats. Oh, cute. Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. Very fun. Well, I do. I hope to hear about it, and I hope all of that goes well. Good luck on the FSI. And yeah, I am. I'm sure it's gonna go fine. But yeah. Well, that'll be good. Yeah. I am. It's so late. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. My brain is not functioning anymore. So yeah, and all the good things. Thank you. Hang on. I forgot to do the. Oop. Thank you for the raid, Patriotic Veteran and CIA Cowboy, for bringing them in. Appreciate it. Thank you for the follows. And yeah, again, as always, thank you all for being here and chatting with me. And yeah, hopefully having a good time. So if it's always fun, okay, just another game. A good game. Like Uno or Clue. Okay, sounds good. Well, yes, I'm glad it's going to be fun then. Yeah, and all the good things. Have a great whatever it's going to be for you. And again, it's Thursday, so have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And yeah, hope to see y'all again soon. Good night. And until next time, all the good things. Thank you. And bye.